Hello again, and welcome to the Master's Voice. I'm Celestial, and you're welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you're very welcome. I will not do any announcements today because the prophecy that I have may be lengthy. The prophecy that I have is also serious. The prophecy that I have is going to impact a lot of families. This is not anything to say that it's going to deal with, oh, it's dealing with the higher ups, it's dealing with the upper echelons, it's dealing with the people who are more moneyed and more famous and more elite. This prophecy that the Lord has given me has been weighing on my heart all day. It has to do with dreams that I had this morning. It has to do with things that the Lord himself said this morning. And I've basically been pondering on this thing all day until the Lord had to ask me just now, are you going to make the prophecy before the light fades? Are you going to make the video before it gets dark? And so here I am to make the video, a video that the Lord has been saying to me all day. The video should get made today. This prophecy is going to impact ordinary American families. Whosoever has an ear to listen, whoever has an ear to pay attention to this thing that technically is turning out to be a lot bigger than I myself understood. So this is going to be one of the beautiful men prophecies. That's the first thing you should understand. The prophecy that I'm handling is going to be dealing with this topic of transsexualism that I've never really touched on in the way that I'm handling it now. And the reason I'm handling it this way, the reason that it just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper is because this thing is touching on something that, if I'm honest, this thing is touching on something that only God knew how deep it is in this country. Only God knew how deep it is in this nation. The picture that I was having, okay, as God was talking to me about this aspect of it, it was like when a big tree is being pulled down. So sometimes people will chop a tree, right? You chop the tree and then obviously only the top part of the tree falls down. So no matter how big the tree, no matter how wide the tree, when you chop a tree, the top part falls down and the root system is allowed to remain in the ground. So that's how sometimes we have these amazing large tree trunks, the stump, and then it even becomes like a national treasure and people go there to look at it to say, oh, look how big this tree once was. This is not like that. The thing that God is doing, the more that I am seeing it, it is putting me in awe, but unfortunately it is also putting me in woe. And I think that those who are wise, those who actually know how to look deeper into the things that God is doing, you will see what God is doing. And it will bring a strong, uneasy feeling to you once you get the understanding of it. Just a moment, please. And so the first thing that I will say right here, at the beginning, if you have not watched The Beautiful Men of America, if you do not know that The Beautiful Men of America is now turning into a series that keeps going deeper and deeper, please understand that you may not be able to travel along easily as you listen to this particular one, because you will keep asking yourself, well, how can it be? And how can that be? And how can this be? Because the Lord was giving me this, and my heart was staggered by what he was giving me, to the point that it was the Lord, it was the Holy Spirit who actually brought back to my remembrance when I was so shocked at some of what I was looking at. It was the Holy Spirit who brought back to my remembrance, Celestial, remember that you have already handled this material in the past. And I was thinking, Lord, where have I touched on such things? And the Lord was telling me, you touched on it here, you touched on it here, you touched on it here, and all the prophecies started coming back to my heart. So for those of you who have already watched all the Beautiful Men of America series, and for those of you who have watched certain aspects that are embedded in this one, when I get to the place where the prophecy is going to change from natural to supernatural, when I get to the place where it's going to change from ordinary, everyday things that we can all follow along into the more supernatural, spiritual things that I have discussed here, that I know some people do not believe, but some people believe it. When I get there, if you've seen those past prophecies, then you will at least have this little wooden bridge to cross with me as I'm going to the other side of the prophecy. But if you have not watched certain things on this blog, if you do not have the knowledge of certain things, then I'm telling you openly and honestly that you are going to struggle. You are going to struggle unless you are able to say, Holy Spirit, even if I haven't watched all the past stuff, I still want to go with them. I still want to travel along with where you're taking, Celestial, so help me. And then when I get to that point, maybe you'll be able to follow, maybe you will not be able to follow. America, I'm telling you, that there are tree roots buried in this country that are massive. And this is why I'm now starting to understand that God is not undertaking a cut down the tree situation. God is not on a cut down the massive tree, cut down the tree of transsexualism, just the way he was cutting down the tree of homosexuality in June. And he has done in past years. God is not cutting down any tree. The picture that I was having, and I keep having today, is of a massive tree, a tree that is so great in size that if I'm viewing it from the bottom, I'm standing at the bottom and all I can see is this tree rising up into the heavens. Someone far bigger than the tree, who can only be the Heavenly Father, Yah himself, took hold of the tree, though I could not see a hand. It was as if someone grabbed the tree, because I started to see its branches. You know, if you grab hold of maybe kale, or you grab hold of broccoli from the head, the way all the top branches and the leaves would just begin to crumble up. Someone grabbed hold of this big, massive tree and began to pull this thing out of the earth. But to my shock, as it was being pulled out of the earth, the earth itself began to rip up and ripple up in so many different directions. And the reason that that was happening is because this tree had roots buried so deep, massive roots. If you can think of a 4-lane highway and see it as a root, as a tree root, instead of thinking of how wide a 4-lane highway is, that's how one of the roots rippled past me as I was standing on the ground. The roots of this Beautiful Man series, the reason that God keeps coming back to it, it is unfortunate that people do not understand why God keeps coming back to it. Because this part of it that God has shown me is absolutely heinous. It is going to hurt people. If you think that people were hurt when God was handling the Nephilim series and revealing that the Nephilim bloodlines still exist today, and that in some places they keep it pure, but some drops of it have definitely fallen into the normal human population. And that is why people are coming up with extra digits. That is why people are coming up with very questionable type of skin. I'm not talking about your normal eczema and psoriasis. I'm talking about things such as scaling, which happens a lot in India. If you thought that that series hurt people, I got a lot of email. I got a lot of accusations. I got a lot of attacks. Well, everybody in my family always had an extra finger or an extra toe and it was cut off. Are you calling us Nephilim? And things like that. A lot of people went ballistic and haywire when God started touching on that series. And then the way he was coming into it, there's one prophecy that caused a lot of upset. It is called Do Not Receive Them. And in there, God was talking about the exact skin conditions, the exact kind of extra digits and things to look out for. People took it hard. So I'm giving you, it's not even a disclaimer or a trigger warning. I do not believe in that. The things that God shows me, if I'm able to allow the Holy Spirit to strengthen me and to go into my inner self and to find the grace to continue with it, that is what is demanded of every Christian. It is not our job to have a choke level to say, thus far can I go and no further. Celestial, you're doing too much. I am doing exactly what God has given me to do. And I will never disrespect him and tell him, God, this is too much. What is happening? It is going to touch a lot of homes. It is going to set off a tinderbox in a lot of homes, whether the person even watches here or not. When this prophecy is manifesting itself, you will actually begin to see it happening in public. You will see it start to crop up on social media. You will see especially men, especially fathers. You will see men, you will see married men mostly, and you will see fathers showing up on social media and starting to say, hey guys, you want to hear something crazy? And then they're going to start to tell you this very thing that God has sent me to tell you first. So the seed of it is already planted. The root of it is already existing in the society. And all that's going to happen is as God exposes the beautiful men of America, as God exposes that there's far more than open transsexual, open transgender is what they're called now. Far more than open transgender living openly in the society where we can see them walking around with bags and shoes and everything and saying, I'm a whole woman. I'm a natural born woman. As God goes deeper, God is going after these hidden trans. God has said that there is no lie that will not be exposed before the end times, the coming of the Lord. You have heard me read the verse here over and over again. There is nothing that is taking place in secret that will not have to be exposed before the end times. When the Holy Spirit goes after this lie and you begin to see this thing manifesting in public, then you will know that there was indeed a living servant of the Lord able to reveal to all of us in real time, not because she hates transgender, not because she has a special thing in her heart for exposing celebrities as people think. You will understand that it was God going after this lie because he cannot tolerate this lie, and because he sees the damage that it has caused and it will continue to cause until it's exposed. There are a lot of trans. You are a man and you have lived as a woman until you are 70. You have lived as a woman until you are 80, and you thought that you would go quietly to your grave. And just because the man, your husband, preceded you in death and he never found out about you, you thought that you will be able to leave this earth and take that secret to your grave. I'm here to tell you, ma'am, sir, that you are not going to be allowed by God to escape exposure. The title of this prophecy is, they will need a chromosome test. They will need a chromosome test. And I received this prophecy through dreams and through the Lord speaking to me. I think today is the 24th. Today is August 24th. I thought it was the 25th. So the title of the prophecy is, they will need a chromosome test. The beautiful men of America. All the prophecies that have to do with the exposure of hidden transgender, hidden transsexual, living as women, undetectable, prepared from a future time, a past time, prepared from a time in the past to manifest now in society and live undetected. That means nobody knows. The neighbors don't know. The spouse of the beautiful man does not know. The children of the beautiful man do not know. God is going to expose. And if you are a man, please understand that the Lord is not sending you to go and start bringing accusations against anyone, because there's a lot of men who already have suspicions in their heart concerning this, that, the fidelity of their wives. There are a lot of men, your hearts are starting to question you. And the reason your hearts are getting stirred up and you're starting to question a lot of things is because we have come now into the era where the truth is stirring up. We've come into the era where the trees are being pulled. The roots of the trees have to come out. Before God can judge this earth, every hidden sin, every secret interaction, it has to be exposed. Once it is exposed, then the judgment will come for that lie, for that secret. And so a lot of men, your hearts are starting to stir up. You're starting to ask yourself questions like, my children don't look like me. My children don't match me. And then men are secretly going and doing paternity tests, and they're finding out that they've been paying for somebody 16 years and the woman told you it was your child. It was not your child. And so the stirring is being caused because of the timing in the earth. So please have an understanding of that. Men, they will need a chromosome test. The beautiful men of America, August the 24th, 2024. So I'm just going to read from my notes. Yah has been showing me so many images of men successfully passing as women today. All through my dreams this whole morning, that at the end result of it, it has been to make my heart exceedingly heavy. And the Lord kept saying to me, wake up and capture this. Wake up and let me talk to you about this. But truly, my heart was heavy, because no matter how you look at this, no matter what angle you try to look at it from, society as we know it is destroyed. Society as we know it is going to be destroyed, because once you start finding out that you are 30 and 40 years in with a man, there's no way for you to be normal again, sir. There's no way for your kids to be normal again. And so I was saying, no matter how you look at it, no matter what angle you try and turn it from, society is basically destroyed. There's some things that once you know them, you can't put them back in the box. You know what you know, and the weight of it can sometimes keep growing until it's unbearable on you. Because the more you know, the worse it can get, until you feel crushed under the knowledge. The Lord was showing me things which, no matter how you turn it, it can only end in heartache, disappointment, and crushing pain for anyone who has to discover the truth in this way. And so The first dream that I had when I was sleeping is that God started showing me women. And these were, I didn't see any, I'm going to have to clarify here, because I guess people have things in their hearts, and then it is out of the filters of people's hearts that they judge me and that they make assumptions about what I'm saying. I will always say what I see. I don't need to sugarcoat what I see. I don't need to give a disclaimer for what I see. You're going to hear it, and you're going to hate it, or you're going to like it. You're going to understand it. You're going to reject it. You're going to do what you're going to do. So God was showing me white women from the 1930s, the 1950s, the 1960s. I'm just assuming it was from those era, because some of the women that I was seeing, what they were doing, it was in black and white. And I don't think we had color and things like that in the 60s. I mean, in the 30s. And then I was seeing in color, but it's not the kind of color that we have now that is so clear and vibrant. What I was seeing is more when Technicolor first came, the basic color, how TV used to look, kind of washed out. The reds weren't quite red. They were orangey looking. I was seeing women like that. But the first thing that God showed me was bright, normal, modern color, but he was showing me women from past eras. Now, it was almost like a beach setting. It was either a beach setting or a park setting, but to me, it struck me more as a beach, because there was just this wide expanse of beautiful blue sky. Wide expanse of beautiful blue sky. And then God had the women, and he lifted them up off the earth, so that I, as the viewer, I was on the earth, but God suspended the women above me, just the way I've explained to you how I sometimes see the idols that God says he's going to judge, that they're suspended in the heavens. These women were not all the way up in the heavens. They were just suspended, I would say, about 2 or 3 feet off the ground, so that definitely they were taller than me, and I had to look up to them. And then it was about 3 or 4 women dressed in the clothing of different eras, and they were just up there suspended like dolls, and they were not dolls. These were actual real women. So he wasn't showing me doll replicas. It was actual real women. But honestly, the way that God presented them to me, it was just like looking at different types of Barbies. They were held in the air wearing different outfits from different eras. One of the women I remembered, she had oversized sunglasses. It was very popular at one time, not cat eye, but the kind that are very oversized. I think Chanel still does that classic frame. And she had on a wicker bag with big looped handles. She was wearing shorts, and she had a big sun hat. You know, the kind of sun hat where they will always say, "Where are we going, darling?" in those old movies. So she had that big sun hat on with the sunglasses, and she was wearing shorts and a little top that she had tied at the waist. So whatever that era was where they would tie it at the waist, with the nice cute shorts and the wicker bag and the big sunglasses and the big hat, that was one lady. And then another lady had on a red and white romper dress. The romper dress is the one that looks almost something like what little orphan Annie wore in her movie. So it was a red and white romper dress. It had big poppies on the dress. In red and white. The dress was mostly white, but then with the poppies, it looked like a very nice red and white print. And the romper dress tends to have a little girl collar at the neck. And she also had big sunglasses. And she had her hair in this classic look of, there's a big hump here, and then the hair flips out. Whatever era that hairstyle is from, where it's a very big hump, and they would sometimes wear a headband, an Alice band on top, and then the hair is just flipping outwards like that. That's what that lady had. And then a third lady, and she had that rich lady scarf. You know, the rich lady scarf, you tie it at the neck, or you sometimes tie it on your head, and you tie it underneath the neck. That lady had that. And then a third lady was a very tall blonde, the kind of blonde that we call statuesque, just legs for days, tall neck like that. And she was wearing a very beautiful white summer dress. She had cute kitten heels on, and she wore her hair very long and straight in the way that Cher used to wear it. So maybe that's a 70s lady, because I think Cher was very famous in the 70s. You know that hairstyle where you part it in right in the middle, and then all the hair falls down in a perfect press like that, bone straight. That's how she was. And so these women were up in the air in front of me, and the sky was acting as a backdrop for them. So that really made them pop, because you can imagine the outfits that I've outlined for you against a bright, fabulous blue sky, exactly the way the sky looks in the trailer for that movie Barbie. That's how it was. And as I was looking at them, it was said to me, these are the men of America. And I'm standing there and I literally thought, man, where? These are the men where? Because there was no trace of man about these women. We all know what women look like, even though now we have reason to question if we do know what women look like, because we've been bamboozled and confused, deceived, tricked, and severely lied to for decades, for centuries, in fact. But my first thought was, man, where? Where's the man? There's not one shred or a scrap of manliness on these women. Nothing that I could look at and even say, oh, okay, I see a sign. This person was originally a man, but now I can see one or two signs where this person tried to transition, but it didn't quite work. They haven't really hidden anything. And I can still see signs visible of what this person was born as. There was nothing like that. In fact, with the exception of the Holy Spirit, the voice of God obviously being there and saying, Celestial, what you're looking at, these are men. If there had been no voice, then I would have just thought, oh, I'm looking at these ladies across the eras. Because of the 3 or the 4 that was being held up for inspection, I saw nothing that is different from how any woman looks. And I, for some reason, as I looked at these women, clearly women, and I heard, these are the men of America, I became very confused and very dismayed. This heaviness entered me that has still not quite left me all today. And the Lord said to me in that dream, wake up and write this truth so that you can go immediately and tell them. Wake up and write the truth. But I was so tired, and also the heaviness had entered me, because the heaviness was based on this. If I'm a woman and then you put women in front of me, and I'm looking at the women and thinking, okay, these women are nice and they're up there, and then you come and tell me that these are men, then obviously, I don't know about you, but you're going to feel dismay. And the dismay is going to come from, then what is the uselessness of my eyes? What is the uselessness of my participation, where you can show me a rabbit, then you ask me, what is it? Then I say it's a rabbit. Then you come and tell me it's a tiger. You don't even say, oh, it's a different form of forest hare. A hare is still the rabbit family. They look different. Hares are bigger with much longer ears, and they look a little dangerous because they're wild animals. A rabbit is not a wild animal. But at least it's the same family. A man barely has anything about him that looks like a woman. It's just that we're all human together. Same family. How can you come and tell me that a rabbit is a giraffe, or a rabbit is a snake, and then nothing will happen? So dismayed entered me, and God said to me, wake up and write down the truth so you can go and tell them. But I was so tired, first of all, and then this dismay entered me. And I opened my eyes briefly, and I did look for my phone, but nothing came of it. I'm here to tell you that nothing came of this first dream. Nothing came to record it or anything like that. I'm giving it back to you because the Lord brought it back to me by revelation, not because I recorded it. And then I went back to sleep, and I started to dream of women keeping house here in America. And it was mostly the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s era, because some of the visions had color and some of them just had, let's just say they were pale gray, black and white, and then it began to get better. So whatever era it would be covering, from when we had no color, but the color was coming, to when we had color, and then we began to perfect it and it began to get better. That's how it was. I was seeing them vacuuming at home while their husbands were at work. So whenever the vacuum came, however boxy it used to be before it got so slim and everything like that, I was seeing them vacuuming at home while their husbands worked. I saw them baking pies. I saw them doing laundry in a day, where some of the women, they were wearing full aprons, and they were wearing that, I will show you the picture as we go along in this prophecy. They were wearing some kind of tie scarf. Okay, there's a tie scarf that women used to wear. They would tie the hair out, and then some hair would be sticking out at the back, and then sometimes some hair would be out in the front, but usually they tied the scarf severely here in the front for no hair to be visible. And then they were doing that. And so I saw some people doing laundry. They were doing laundry by hand. They were doing laundry with energy, and then they would go and hang it up. And then some people had access to washers and dryers. So they would come, the first ones, whichever were the first washers and dryers, they would come and they would press whatever button it is. And there was something about all these women, especially the ones who were more modern. They had this movement like, while making the pie, gently blending. It was so serene. It was, I'm a woman at home baking pies. I clean the house for my family. I set fresh flowers in a vase every day. My husband enjoys that. They were not speaking. But if there had to be a voiceover for what I was looking at, it would have been the voiceover of, look at me keeping the house. I'm such a good woman. And so that's what they were doing. They were baking pies. I saw them doing the laundry in a day. Some people had to put it up to dry on the line, some ladies, but other ladies were able to take it out of a washer and put it in a dryer. And there was something that now said, I now have access to washers and dryers. And I saw their clothing style changing from decade to decade, but I was constantly seeing the women that now some people have started calling them trad wife, which means traditional wife. That's what I was seeing. The old style traditional woman who stayed at home and did not work and made dinner. And when her husband would come, just like in the I Love Lucy kind of things, she would put a kiss on his cheek and he would say, well, it sure is good to be home. That kind of thing. They were all at home, taking care of the house, raising children. I saw them raising children. I saw something would happen to their child and their child would run to them crying, and then they would kiss the child's cheek. I saw them bandaging hurt knees. I saw them basically looking after their kids, driving them to school when the car came and women were driving. I saw the women with their big hats, or I saw them with their bandanas driving their children to school. And so I'm just looking at all of this. And then again, the Lord just comes in the whole situation and just kicks it aside and just says, these are men. They are all men. And the same distress came upon me like it came upon me, because how can you tell me that these are men? I'm watching them. I'm looking at them. They have the perfect 30-inch nipped waist. It's a nipped waist. It's 26 or whatever. In the house dress. Doing the powder puff. Pouting the color on the lips. How will you just say that these are men? And I was so distressed, and I thought, how can everybody be a man? So I wasn't addressing God. I was thinking the kind of thoughts to myself. I was thinking in my sleep, how can everybody be a man? Where is the woman then? Where's the woman if all these people are men? Then who is female? What about women? How can this many people as I've seen, meaning what I'm seeing in this dream, how can this many people as I've seen, who are moms in apron cooking, be men? Where is the husband? Where is he if he does not know that this is a man? Where's the husband not to know that this is a man? I was so distressed in my soul, but I was also so offended. And the Lord said, know this. These are men. And the husbands know that they are men. Their children don't know, but the husbands know it's men and are content to live with them like that. And then he said, but some of these men don't know. The husband doesn't know, and the children don't know that it is a man making house with them. They keep their secrets, speaking of the transgender. They keep their secrets, their deadly secrets. But these are all men that you see before you. Wake up. Wake up. Let me speak with you about this thing. For in this you shall be vindicated. So I've said that I'm looking at people now. They're making home. They're baking pies. Black and white people who had to do the laundry on that washing board, that scrubbing board, and hang it out with the little pegs. You know when the pegs were just a little piece of wood with a chip? And you had to put it in and put it in. Those were very far times back. It's not every culture that hangs out the laundry outside on the line now. And then it comes into the modern era where the woman first has a toaster and where the first this and the washer has been invented. And I see them caring for their children across the ages. And yet God is saying, these are all men. Wake up, wake up. I want to talk to you about this. Wake up so you can go and tell the people immediately. Wake up, because Celestial, in this matter, what matter? In the matter of saying that America is filled with hidden men in every walk of life, we've only so far been looking at the beautiful men who have fame, who have a reputation, who have left a legacy. Even the dolls of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people who were open with their transition process, people who were open of their desire, like the one called Tracy Africa. That woman was an American who became super famous all across Europe. She was being booked for the biggest brands, the biggest French and London names, until someone outed her, and then her career stalled. Because back then, when Tracy Africa was working, they were not willing to accept a transgender acting openly as a woman. And so her career dried up. She came back to America. She was trying to get work. That woman actually ended up on the Clairol box twice. Her box, she was modeling a red hair color. They've stated in historical context that Tracy Africa's box was one of the most famous boxes of hair dye ever sold in the United States. Thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of women wanted to buy that hair color because he looked so good in it. And they did not know at the time that they were in love with a man's image modeled as a woman. So we've only been looking at the beautiful men who actually confessed what they were, and we've been looking at the beautiful men who are hiding in the population, like modern sports stars and modern models and modern music stars and modern movie stars. But now God has put his hand on the fact that this tree root, I'm telling you, and I will give you my own experience from last night. That thing sent me to bed in such a down mood. That was the thing that just made me get off the internet, because I said, you know what, God? I'm tired of this. And I'm also tired of every time my mind tries to go down the hole to see how deep this thing goes. It's as if your brain wants you to just have a rest. But God does not want us to live in darkness, and he doesn't want us to live in the midst of deceit. And that is why I'm here bringing you this truth. So I was so distressed. And God was saying, wake up, let me tell you the thing. Let me tell you the thing, Celestial, so that you can be vindicated. Why am I going to be vindicated? Why would God say vindicated? To those of you who don't know what vindication is when you say something. Vindication is when you point something out. Vindication is when you give voice to something and people call you a liar. People start to say that you're off the deep end. People start to say that you are a slanderous person and you deserve to be punished or sued for it. People start to say that what you're saying is so outlandish, it is such a lie, and you're such an evil person, malicious and racist. And then you know what? In the midst of that whole tirade, in the midst of people ranting, the day comes and everyone puts on the TV and the thing you said is on the TV. The news is breaking that so-and-so is dead and so-and-so has been exposed for being a man. The news is breaking where the person is sitting, a well-known face, a famous face, maybe a face like Brooke Shields, is sitting and saying, I've just gotten word that I have this and this type of cancer. And you know what? I'm not ashamed of my life. I'm not ashamed of who I've been. It's time to tell my truth. And then the live streams begin to go viral. And you now, who were bringing the cursing, who were bringing the disbelief, who were so proud, we've seen this and we know this about that person, and what you're saying is not true. Then you're eating humble pie plus crow plus burning shame inside yourself, as you see the proof that God always has told us is going to come out. God was waking me up, rushing me in my sleep and saying, wake up, young woman. I want to talk to you. I want to explain to you what is true, because trust me, in this thing, you shall be vindicated. And so this second time, I managed to wake up. But when I tell you, I was weighed down with sleep, heavy with sleep, and I did not manage to get everything that God said. I know that some of it is not captured, because I fell asleep again, but I managed to write some down. So you can hear the sum that I got. It's quite a lot, but I know that I didn't get everything. The Lord said that the tradition of men dressing as women goes back to the Windsors and even beyond them. God is directly pointing to the royal family in England. They are the Windsors. The Windsors. Everybody knows that Prince Charles and Prince Harry and Princess Diana, who is passed on, and Fergie, and all the rest of them are what is known as the House of Windsor. And of course, Queen Elizabeth is no longer here with us, but that's the House of Windsor. That is among nations that still have monarchies, okay? Among nations that are still known to be, this is a monarchy, as in they have a visible monarchy, even if they also have a government, and most of them also have a prime minister. But places like Monaco and places like, I think in Denmark, like that, they will still have their queen. The monarchy hasn't gone away. The most famous of it is the House of Windsor. And God is saying that this thing, the tradition of men dressing as women, goes back to the Windsors, which means that they are participants in it, which means that you can look at the House of Windsor. I've said this in a previous prophecy, and you will see the men sitting there. You will see the hard-faced men. And the reason they're becoming hard-faced is because they're older now. God is speaking of a tradition where I've said that the young men in a family, when the baby is born, depending on the kind of strategic marriages that they want to get involved in, if they know that the King of Spain is becoming particularly powerful when a little boy enters the family, they will start transing him from the get-go. They will not admit that a prince has been born into the family. They will say the wonderful little princess is here. The only people are the people who, especially in those days with the kind of medical care that they had, the doctor had to be taken into the confidence. You could not just be rude to a medieval doctor, especially because he knew all the secrets of the crown. I've told you that the doctor knew, the butlers and the ladies in waiting and the ladies' maids know. There is no way that a woman is bringing up 6 buckets of steaming hot water to put it in a tub and then is told, bathe the princess. And this woman has birthed her own children and she knows a man's back when she sees one. That's why you see in these little shows that they do, they will always say to the ladies' maids, keep your tongue, hold your tongue before you lose it. Because if that tongue ever gets drunk at home and begins to say, I know the secret the queen is hiding, then you're going to end up on the gallows for saying that the queen is a man, for saying that the princess is a man. So this is a time-honored tradition, and God keeps stipulating and keeps pressing this aspect. Why? Because modern people want to fight that old traditions can ever bleed down to their time. Modern people want to act like having Siri and Alexa and bullet trains now means that secrets that have been hidden for hundreds and hundreds of years go away. The secrets don't go away. The secrets simply recede because they know that they will not be accepted in this time. And so the only way to continue what they want to do is to use subterfuge and deceit, hiding, smoke and mirrors. And then they get the added kick of being able to do it in our faces and laugh in our faces and even get us to support it. It is very funny to a transgender to see you saying, yes, queen, go on, queen. I love her. She's so dainty. And it's a whole man that you're giving. You wouldn't give those compliments to your mother, your aunt, your sister, or another real woman. You reserve them for the male trans that you're in love with. This thing angers God. It may not anger you, but it angers God. And he's saying that this tradition of men dressing as women goes back to the Windsors and even beyond them. So the Windsors are a very old, ancient family. Queen Elizabeth has had many, many, many other kings and queens in the tradition before her. She's the visible monarch that we knew now in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. That's a lot of decades that this woman has been living. And God is saying, look beyond the Windsors that you know now. The Prince Harry with a Meghan Markle, whose moon bump used to change shape every other week in her pregnancy. And one day it actually fell to her knees. Go and do your homework. Go and look up how she came to an event and the moon bump was in place. And then when she was leaving, the thing toppled to her feet. Her belly was flat and then she had a huge pillow-sized lump stuck under her dress. And I don't know how the people with her didn't watch her or tell her that. Nobody told her that the thing had fallen. I don't know if she couldn't feel it, but the pictures are right there on the internet. You that always take pictures holding your stomach, the celebrities are holding their stomach because there have been quite a few accidents in the past. That's the reason they always cradle the moon bump. They always hold the belly. I have seen non-moon bump people, real women, saying in comment sections, Why do they always hold their stomach like that? It's not like it's ever going anywhere. Now you know their version of the belly can move, can shift, can even move in the dress, which is why the new moon bumps, the new fake stomach gets glued on. That's why when they post their workout routine in front of you, it's not moving. I can tell you right now, it's a full bodysuit. When you see them showing you the belly, what don't you see? You don't see the bodysuit. Every woman knows what a bodysuit is. The bottom of a bodysuit goes on just like a swimming suit. So when it goes, no matter how low the belly is, once they put shorts on or pants on or leggings on, even if the whole moon bump is out, you will never see the moon bump join because it's actually flowing down exactly like female underwear does. You step into your moon bump like a swimsuit. And then what else about it? It comes up on the body and then it is literally glued on so that even with movement and exertion, such as them showing you their workout routines, the top of the moon bump will sit inside the bra. So it goes all the way up and then sits inside the bra so that all you will see is a pure wall of flesh. So to you looking and saying, it looks real to me, you don't know anything. The young people, when they're making movies where they're supposed to be pregnant, they get so excited about it that they put the entire process on the internet. There's a young blonde lady who put the entire process of how she wears her moon bump like a swimsuit, steps into it, and then the flesh of the silicone was glued to her. And then she took a bikini photo with that fake stomach. And you know what? You can't see anything for dust because the top of the moon bump is inside her bikini top. And the bottom of the moon bump is inside the outer bikini bottom that she's wearing. You see moon bumps in movies all the time. The woman is wearing nothing and she's heaving to give birth and you're transported to that moment of birth. What birth? Afterwards, they unglue the thing from her and then she goes back to her trailer because she doesn't want to be lugging a 30-pound fake tummy, a 20-pound or 10-pound fake tummy. So even beyond the House of Windsor, going back as far as you want into antiquity, in the days when letters had to be carried on the backs of a horse, people were trancing, people were cross-dressing. God says, please listen, because this now, historical kings were women and historical queens were men. So it wasn't just about raising your child and hiding the gender of the prince, so that you could marry your son off to the Prince of Spain, who was going to also become king and gain a strategic alliance. It was the actual kings and queens sitting on the thrones themselves. He says historical kings were women. Historical queens were men. Cross-dressing is one of the most time-honored ways to mock God. And women being coronated as men and men as women is an inside joke as old as forever. So then all of those who are still trying to act wiser than God, why would God want to talk about celebrities? Why is this relevant? Why can't we let people live their lives? Because God is being mocked. And it's a pitiful thing when those who are inside the house of God do not care that God is being mocked. It is a pitiful thing when our hearts are not cut for the things that cut God's heart. And then we want to come and sit in front of him and tell him how much we love him. Who can claim to love someone and not be touched with the pains that pain them? Who can claim to have affection for someone and then when they say, I'm wounded by this, then we say, that's okay, you'll get over it. As long as we don't cause offense to other people because we need to let people live their lives. This is the thing that is offensive to God, that he says that cross-dressing is one of the most time-honored ways that he is mocked. So then you can have the understanding of what I always tell you here, when God brought the understanding of what the verse means, that a woman should not put on anything pertaining to a man. Hardline sticklers, legalist sticklers always say it means that no female should ever be seen in jeans. You wear pants, you're going to hell. And yet what the Lord brought to me is to say that when you put on with the intention that the adornment make you have the appearance of what you are not, therein lies the offense. I brought this thing back at least 2 years ago when I was handling, I think the prophecy is called A Man Cannot Be a Woman, or a man is not a woman and a man can never be a woman. Somewhere there in 2022 when I was going through how people abuse sexuality is how God brought this thing to me. And I say that I was astounded because there's so much debate about it in Christianity. A man should not put on, God is now saying, with the intention that you appear as something that you are not. I will go deeper into this in another prophecy because he gave me the full rundown of it, showing me the English breakdown of the word. That is the meaning of this. The cross-dressing is done to mock God, which is why we have, as far back as then, the law that God brings, that he doesn't want to see men dressing as women and women dressing as men. They didn't even have pants in those days. Please bear in mind, at the time the verse was written in the Bible, there were no trousers for women. So God was clearly pointing to something else that modern people have now lost the heart of and started to flow along legalism as always. He says it's a time-honored way to mock him. And women being coronated as men and men as women is an inside joke as old as forever. So that means that in the high level, the elite level, before we started to get governments and presidents, back when it was kings and queens and dynasties, pharaohs maybe even, it was an inside joke to know that Princess so-and-so walking to the top to receive her crown was actually a man. Listen to the Lord. That is the reason why for some of these kings, they would make up so many myths of how many women they had. Yah said that the same way men lie now, claiming that they've slept with so-and-so woman when they have not, that's the same way you get these wild, infamous stories of great libido that were invented to cover these women kings, who were not doing anything but sleeping in bed at night after sitting on the throne all day. All inventions, stories to cover the head that wore the crown. So then which blog am I getting this one from? That God is saying, you might look at a Henry VIII. Chubby man, he's appearing to us. Face full of whiskers, which God has now revealed. Whiskers is nothing more than the end clippings of hair pasted onto a face for a day or for a season. Pasted on carefully. You and the butler, you and the lady's maid, and the butler is saying, sire, your laugh is a little too high. We men are usually a little lower. The same way we have watched so many movies. As the woman teaches a man how to be a woman to sneak him in somewhere. As girls learn how to be a man to sneak in somewhere. This cross-dressing theme is throughout all of America's movies. It's throughout all of America's movies. Everything that Americans have watched, laughed at, looked at has been these people declaring openly that yes, the men do dress as women, and yes, the women do dress as men. They put it as comedy. Sometimes they put it as the severe longing of a soul to be what it's not, like that hideous movie with Eddie Redmayne in it. They dress it up with piano music, but what it's really saying is perversion of the Lord's design as a way of mocking him, to make fun of God's design, to make fun of what God made beautiful, the devil then defiles. God says, look, historically queens, it's men. Historically kings, it's women. And they make up wild stories about how many bed wenches the king had, how many wives the king had, and all along, the king, because he has the temperament of a woman, because he is a woman, he's in bed by 9 o'clock going to sleep so that he can come back and sit on the throne. And then they have to invent this wild story of a Casanova type of man to fit in with what men will approve of in a leader. He says, in the times now that we live in now, he says, you have women living as men in millions of households. Millions of homes, the women inside them are men. When I heard this, I felt very grieved. So much so that my heart began to turn away, not from the Lord, but from the realization of how big a lie can truly be. If a lie is surrounding you like this, you can't find any sense of reality to use as a point of reference to make sense of the world around you. And so that's the weight of realizing So we're not just talking about beautiful men in the high places. We're not just talking about Twiggy and Tula. We're not just talking about Grace Jones and the rest. You're now telling me that seated in millions, not thousands. He said seated in millions of American homes, a beautiful man is there guarding what God calls his dark and deadly secret. He says millions of homes, the women inside them are men. And my heart started grieving because I was saying, Lord, this lie is too big. This lie is too big. And a lie like this, once this lie starts to be exposed, what happens is that people in ordinary homes immediately begin to operate in what? In mistrust and suspicion. Who are you really? Who are you really? And that has happened several times. I gave in the beginning examples of revelations that God has brought to this ministry. The revelation will come out and then people will start writing me and saying, you know, my husband does like to eat his steak very rare. Do you think he's a Nephilim? What am I supposed to say to that? So this will definitely touch homes. And I said the weight of knowing that this is going to go into ordinary homes was making my heart turn away. But the Lord said, no, 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 no. Listen to me. Listen to what I'm telling you. The men are women in America, and they have been doing it a long time until it is undetectable. It is undetectable. That is what he said. That basically, there are women in this America. They will pass by you and you will tell them their outfit is amazing. You will envy their shape. You will envy their face. You will say just her class, her grace, her glamour, her poise. This is not a famous person. This is someone in your own gym. This is someone in your own circle of women. This is someone, your workmate. This is what God is saying. We are now talking about the grassroots level where we live and exist. He says the men are women in America, and they've been doing it a long time until it is undetectable. Said it again. It is undetectable. They are everywhere in many homes, and people have lived their whole lives not knowing that they were adopted or not knowing that their mother was a man. The favorite type of man for a trans to marry is the man who already has children. If a man already has children, and especially if he's a man of a certain age. So it comes to a certain age, a man doesn't want to go through changing diapers anymore, and that late night feeding and that 2 a.m. crying and watching a person grow up when you're already 51 or 63. A man just doesn't want to go through that. So God was saying there's a certain type of man, especially if he's at a certain age or if he already has children, then a man doesn't want more children. He says men with bigger children don't always want more children. What they're looking for is a woman who can now fill the gap that they have. And God was saying they don't have a child gap because these men already have children. What these men have is an Eve gap, a companion gap, a woman gap. They're looking for a woman to complete what they know they're missing. They already have kids, and so they will not want a baby from the woman that they meet, that they marry, that they decide to settle down with. So God says that a trans will target a man who already has children because it gives him a ready-made family that he can now play mom to. That is why God was showing me women, meaning men, living as women. That is why God was showing me women who seem to take so much pride in their home, in their culinary skills, being able to do a good beef Wellington, being able to do a good Thanksgiving turkey, being able to do a very moist chocolate ganache or whatever. God was showing me women who seem to take so much pride in their home and in their children and in the ordinary tasks traditionally associated with women: mopping, doing dishes, vacuuming, taking care of the children, comforting their hurts, dropping the kids off at school. The Lord was showing me these men delight in doing female activities and mastering them. The dance recital mom, the sports mom, the ballet mom, helping the kids with homework, the perfect homemaker woman. They do women's activities like a badge of honor because they want to be seen doing it to justify them as women, especially if they do it well. So let me just come back briefly to the top. God is saying that this thing is taking place at a grassroots level. So now, being who he is and how he moves the lens across a matter. The reason that sometimes I can bring 6 or 7 prophecies on the same topic is because the Lord is not a one and done. God doesn't just look and say, America, hear ye this day. Men live among you. Men cosplay as women. Your society is false. You have venerated and looked up to men, model men, superstar men. You've been in love with the Sandra Bullock and the Farrah Fawcett, and all along it was a man. And then he switches the microphone off. No. Being who he is, the Lord will always move down. He will always move down bullet point by bullet point on an agenda until it's finally done. And now he's bringing it. He's bringing it to the other side of the camera. Now, if you're a man and you're listening to this, especially if you are an older man and you're listening to this, or a younger man and you're listening to this, you now have a serious problem. You've got a lot more on your plate than worrying about Venus and Serena Williams. You've got a lot more on your plate than identifying all the newscasters, and the newscasters are overwhelmingly men. They are overwhelmingly men. Once God opens your eyes to this thing, you will be shocked at how many of the news broadcasters are males sitting in those dresses, in their broad shoulders, bringing you the news, bringing you the truth. It's a lie. The very person who's sitting there is the news. The person who's sitting there is a whole lie about whom truth needs to be revealed. But now God is bringing it and saying it's in your homes. The person that you think is mom, God says that that person is not mom, and that person has been cosplaying as mom their whole life. God says that there are tons of people who don't even know that they're adopted. And he went into it a little bit. I will go into it when I get there. Because in a home where there's no children, you marry the trans young, there's no children, then obviously, eventually, the whole infertility struggle comes up. Those of you who follow the Lives of the Stars, how many of them have sat with their own mouths, building up the script? They've been building up the script that their entire life is, we had struggles with infertility and that's why we finally adopted. Isn't that Sandra Bullock's story? Many will come and say you're shaming women who are barren, but God already says that this is a man. So there's no application of women who are barren here. We're talking about men who have the visible signs of men. I brought a footage here that shows you Sandra Bullock in an old movie called The Bionic Woman. And as she's walking, I said in the visual video, I said, watch the bottom of the swimsuit. Which woman has something that moves around visibly at the bottom of her swimsuit? When has that ever happened with a real woman? It can never happen with a real woman. So then we're not talking about real women. So then you need to calm down and listen above what you feel. If you marry someone young who has no womb, nothing is coming out of the womb. So eventually, to assuage the emptiness of the house, wanting a baby, wanting the completeness of the family that God has ordained between men and women, then yes, adoptions happen. And not every person who adopts is honest with the child. Not every person who adopts tells the child, you are our bundle and we love you, but there was a time when mommy and daddy could not have children. And then they bring out the truth to the child, and the child is then able to say, I love you both. I'm happy here. You are my parents. Or at least be able to reach an estimation of peace. People have been living in the house adopted, not knowing that they're adopted. And dad agreed with mom that they wouldn't tell you. But what dad doesn't know is that mom had a reason. Mom had a reason for asking dad and saying, let's not tell. Let's act as if this is our own baby. And dad thought, yeah, you know, it'll be good for the baby's mind. A lot of dads have gone. A lot of dads think about this from all angles, please. A lot of dads have left this earth, keeping the secret as agreed with mom. And mom, who is the one that had a lot more to lose, is never going to tell that child that I'm a man mothering you. And then think deeper. A transgender is not from the moon. This is a person whose deepest desire is to be a woman. They love these men. And God even showed me the Bible verse to read to show you how complicated emotions get even when the wrong thing is being done. How much pain it causes in the home, in the society, and in the community when these kinds of lies come out. But because God is God, the lie itself must come out. Many families are going to be rocked. when they start being forced to confront these things, because these things, I said, the tree is being pulled up out of the earth, and the tree is just like a piece of broccoli to God's big hand. Just the way we reach in and we take the broccoli out of the bag and the broccoli can't do anything. That's how God is going to rip up this deceit out of the earth. And when the huge rippling roots start coming up, many families are going to be affected and destroyed. But the truth must still come out, because we cannot go into the end times with lies being covered. So with men married to a trans who then bring babies into the family and don't tell the babies where they're coming from, the baby will think that I came from this woman. If the baby does not look, if the adopted child now, especially in the older days, there's no IVF, right? So you're adopting a child, at least you're dark-haired, the baby's dark-haired. But as children begin to develop, you never know who they're going to start looking at. Like, then the child is in the house and looking at dad and saying, I don't look like dad. I don't look like mom. Am I really these people's kids? My mom is small boned. My dad is small boned. And here I am at 6'7". Is there something wrong? These things bring consternation. Or, as you hear, the trans is looking for a ready-made family. Older men tend to have ready-made families. If they've divorced, if the mother is no longer alive, or if he was successful in the divorce, he's raising his kids, then the trans sees a ready-made family, knows that no pressure will be put on him to give birth. There's a man, he's well off, or there's a man, I've fallen in love with him, he has his young daughter. I can just insert myself into this family. This is serious duplicity. The problem with duplicity that we've seen in 1,000 movies is that people can get into a duplicitous role and then they can fall in love. 5 years, 10 years is a long time not to love your husband and your child. 5 years, 10 years is a long time to even have it at the front of your mind that you're a man. And you're wondering, how can this be pulled off? People have had their surgeries. You saw it in the films that I've shown you. You saw it, that these people talk about their full change. And don't you go thinking that, oh, the change is this and that. No. These doctors may not be able to make what God gives a woman, but the doctors make it in such a way that I saw the trans saying, I just could not bring it to this platform, but the trans were saying with their own mouths that they're able to have the same pleasure that a woman can have. They're able to have the same feeling that a woman can have. Now, I do not know how they would know this, but they were basically speaking of their own body and saying that even after their change, the doctor would do good work on them, to the point that he as a man can also feel satisfied while with a partner. So there is no way that a husband can necessarily know. Just to show you how deep, dark, and twisted this is. Not can get, but is, if you really think about it. And God was thinking about it for me this morning. My head was hurting. So if people don't want children, and they're looking for a woman to fill the companion gap, the wife gap, because they already have the child gap filled, then obviously this person will come in. And God was showing me these women that he was showing me in the second dream where I still couldn't wake up, the way they were vacuuming and see the fresh roses as I drop off my children from school. These people are actually playing a script in their mind. The better they are at the female activities, the better they are at setting up, for instance, a garden party, and everybody just comes and says, that lemon meringue was just, I've never had anything like that. And your Cajun salad, it was that thing. You think that most people want to be, they want to be vindicated, or they want to be victorious in life. They want to be appreciated for running on track. They want to be appreciated for being a good accountant, a great lawyer, a great doctor. A man who wants to be a woman, the highest vindication, the badge, the seal of authenticity that you can give him is to tell him that his roast beef is unmatched. Is to tell him, did you see the footage? I brought you the footage. The man's name is Christine Jorgensen. I've never seen a bolder trans than that man. For he was bold in an era where if they caught him, it wasn't going to be good for him. He was married. It was 1953. And he won the Woman of the Year award. I put the footage. And what he was saying cryptic in code was, I thank you all for this prestigious award right here in New York City. That man lived. He said, I thank you all for this prestigious award. But I have to say that the people who made me what I am, people who should be here today but could not be here today, I owe this award to them, and that is my doctors and my friends. It's a very bold trans. He's thanking his doctors because his doctors are going to see it on TV, obviously. It was a black and white clip. His doctors will see it on TV and know that he was thanking them for doing such immaculate work that he could, in 1950s America, pass as a woman, a high society woman, a socialite, to the point that he was rewarded with Woman of the Year. And he was also giving a salute to his trans friends because, like I said, living with this secret is a terribly lonely life. At some point, if other people know about you, you don't feel so alone. That man was bold to live like that. And what a mockery in the face of real women. Just like it's a mockery in the face of real women when the trans takes all the men. The trans are taking all the basketball players. The trans are taking all the rappers. All those couples you are looking at, a large majority of them are transgender. There is some famous soccer player. I don't know his name because I don't follow that sport, but a famous soccer player. He was dating a trans for a long time. The only reason he left the trans is because people were trolling him too much. That's why the relationship broke off. So you go and Google and see the trans. Just a moment, please. The soccer player's name is Mbappe. Mbappe. Never heard of that man before I started doing this series, but apparently he is the biggest, hottest thing in international soccer. He was dating a man. He was not hiding that it was a man. It was just the pressure of people on that relationship because it seemed that his male fans would not let him catch a break. They wouldn't let him breathe. They wouldn't stop trolling him. And so eventually the relationship broke off. And I think he may be dating a real woman now. But he was dating the transgender knowing it was a transgender and not ashamed. So then what does that tell you about the willingness of men to go with what looks like a woman and not feel harassed about it and not feel bothered about it? Can you not see where we are going? The Olympics ceremony has already announced internationally to the world that we are in the age of trans. But then why is the church, as usual, always at the tail end being dragged by the fingernails and saying, no, it can't be? It absolutely can be. If the biggest people that any normal girl would want to dream of and say, ooh, if that person could be my mate, and the person is willingly going with a trans, an open one or one of the hidden beautiful men, then what does that say about the stature of real women in the society? That is why God is bringing this series. The questions that this series are uncovering for those who don't just want to make a lot of noise. If you are quiet and you really sit and think about this, you will actually hear the Father's heart of pity for his genuine daughters. Pity. To have the thing that you are overtaken by the thing that you are not, and then they begin to crush it and do it better than you to the point that you become the fan of the person who has robbed you of your identity. It is pitiful and crushing to see that happen. That womanhood be destroyed in the earth, and then it's the women clapping the loudest for their own destruction. It's the women who support gay men and transgender men the loudest. It is the women who say, get it, girl. You look at the trans doing makeup on the internet. Get ready with me as I transform all this into candy. 2 million views. Check the comments. I'm not quite getting it right, Gerald. How are you doing it? Clueless, oblivious. This is the Eve of today. Asleep while her throat is being cut. And then she will say, where are all the good men? The good men are with the trans. The good men want the trans. So God says, if the husband knows who he's with, like, I will look for that footage. I will see if I can get that. There is a person who was very well known. I think it was 1930s, late 1930s, 1938. An obvious man. You see the man, you know the man. The man is saying hello. Famous golfer, married to a rather chubby guy. You can see at their wedding ceremony. You look at the footage. All of this, there's an excellent woman on TikTok doing God's own work. And I'm going to leave her name in the description box. Look underneath under the description box, because these are the Lord's prophecies. And I'm not here to be recommending this ministry or recommending that person. I've always said that in God's prophecies, I'm not here to be dropping recommendations and things like that, because this is the Lord's material. But you have to. He told me to give credit where credit is due, actually. And so this woman's work is impeccable. And I will leave it in the description box. And also I want to say at this time that the person who gave me an unwanted push over the cliff into this material, God told me to honor you publicly. And so, Tracy, I want to tell you thank you for the hideous thing that you did to me on the 22nd of March, 2023. God says to give honor where honor is due. And so I want to thank you for the bald, blunt, and unashamed way you brought this information to my knowledge, because now God used that thing to bring a deliverance to my soul in 2023. And a year later, God is deepening the knowledge of it in me so much. And many, many thousands of people, thousands upon thousands, hopefully millions one day, will watch this series and wake up to the truth that you had and that you did not hesitate to share with me. So I give you that thank you, so that all these people can know that I'm very transparent in the manner that God uses to make me what I am. God bless you. And so here we are. God says that if the husband knows what he has married, then it is homosexuality. And in that black and white couple that I said I'll look for it and try and put it in one of my upcoming visual videos, that man knew exactly he was marrying a man. There's a conspiratorial look between him and his bride at the wedding. And I thought, this man 100% knows that he's pulling a number on his family, his family, 100% knew. And there they are playing at husband and wife. This is the kind of person that God says they will live in the middle of the suburb. 1960s. Can you imagine the red-blooded men of America if they knew that inside that white picket fence, that house with the pretty blue shutters, the one that always calls out and goes, morning, good morning. And you're like, hello, Geraldine. And it's just Gerald without the Dean part. Can you imagine 1960s, 1940s, open homosexuality in this country? A man and a man going and sitting in church, and he's got the prim little hat and going, Lord have mercy. And the other one goes, that's all right, honey. This is a strange place that we live in. And what's stranger is that the people don't want to wake up to the strangeness. If the husband knew about it, God says it's just blunt and basic open homosexuality. He says they both know, and the trans would not be forced to hide who they are except from the world. That means inside the house. Imagine a man meeting another man, falling in love and saying, let's go back to Ohio and live man to man. I'll present you as my bride. And then simply tell the neighborhood, we've never wanted kids. That totally removes the urge, the need, and the pressure to have them. If your neighbors assume that your husband has a womb and no kids come from the womb, you can always spend your cigar smoking days saying, never liked kids. What you like is that man. That's how they were living before the 80s, It's Raining Men gay pride parade. They were living in secret, in the open. So God says that if they both know, the trans will never have to hide who they are and can be himself in the house, because the man he's with actually likes man. To the man he's with, he can be as he likes. He can act as a man. He can live in the house as a male when no one is there. Or God says he can present as a female. If the transsexual truly has that heart that the devil has confused and he wants to be as a woman, then day and night, he will be before his husband, even saying, I don't want you to see me in my curlers. Wait. And the man will laugh and say, I like you just the way you are, Geraldine. And he will say, no, he will do all the things as a woman. He will never actually stop doing it because he doesn't feel he's acting. That's his personality. And so God says he can act as a male in the house or he can act as a female, but the homosexual husband, meaning the one who is male presenting, male thinking, male living, He says that one will always be as a male inside the house and outside. He will always only show himself as a straight male. So where the transsexual life enters full deception, please, this is God talking to me. I've come out of the sleep. God has called me 2-3 times. Wake up and get this truth. Celestial, wake up. I want to talk to you about this thing. I want you to have an understanding. Wake up. Let me talk to you so you can go and tell the people immediately. God says where the transsexual is in full deception, it is a different matter. Yah says they are prepared to live their entire lives as a woman until the day their husband dies without him knowing. And Yah says this cannot be tolerated. There are quite a few of them. Their husbands have already passed on. They've mourned him as a righteous widow. They've decided that they truly did love that man and they don't want someone else. They've maintained the house. They raised the kids, saw them off to college, had them back, had the wedding in the garden for each of the children, or a wedding in the town's church, saw the children off to their own homes, now quietly is at home. The children come home for Christmas. The children come home for Thanksgiving. God says that this person is willing to carry this storyline to the grave, and he, God, is not going to have that. If you go back to one of my old prophecies, it talks about how God says every single lie, even the cold cases, will be solved. He said every single lie that is existing on earth will be exposed. So ordinary people, perhaps we should worry less about the famous people, and we should start to say, Lord, what is it? What have I stolen from my company? What have I been living as? What have I been doing as? Because like that. So God says that some trans are in full deception, and they're prepared to bury their spouse without the spouse ever knowing, and this cannot be tolerated. He says transgenders have gone through the full change to live as a woman, and a man will never know that he married a man. A man cannot give birth. A man cannot have children. Some men have lived with that infertility storyline all their lives. He's talking about the husband who doesn't know. He says some husbands have had to live with that infertility storyline all their lives, accepting that there would be no children in that marriage unless they agree to foster children or to adopt. And God says that's because he does not know that his seed has gone into a place of futility. Not knowing it's because his seed goes into a place of futility. So there's no womb. You lay with your wife and you do what people do, and you think, I shall bring forth a child and raise up seed unto myself. And God says you have placed your seed like Onan into a place of futility. No child can come from a man, Celestial. That is the evil that men do under the sun. I just mentioned about the celebrities, so there's no need to go back to them. You've heard this infertility story a lot through the TV, but how many times have you heard the infertility story in daily life from the people around you? These are the questions that the Lord is opening up our minds to. The celebrities, by and large, swear. They will always tell you before they debut their adopted baby from Malawi, I fought a terrible battle with infertility. And then everyone goes, me too, me too. Even the trans in real life who's watching the program, they will say, me too. I fought a terrible battle with infertility. But then the infertility of a man is the fact that that man will never bring a baby out 10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100. The only time that men will start bringing forth children is in the future when transhumanism comes into full play, because Satan is going to successfully implant wombs in men. And I said that the men will be birthing babies, and God will strike the females who have natural wombs. He will strike them with barrenness, hostile womb, infertility, because of the sexual sins that they committed in their past, never repented, and because of the heinous sexual acts that they will be doing in the end times. So I said to the Lord, how can this be? A capital letters, how can this be? My head was hurting. My heart was hurting with this information. I said, God, how can this be? How can this be happening on such a wide scale? This is such a big nation. America is a nation, but it is also a continent. It is a whole continent. I said, how can this be a country this size? How can this be happening all over the country as you are showing it to me? How? And then God showed me the government working and working and working. And this is where the prophecy is going to shift from normal things that some of you have even watched on these shows like Jerry Springer and Maury and that other lady, Sally Jesse Raphael. You have seen and heard some of these things over the past years, but now the way that the Lord just took a sharp angle. This is the part that I was saying in the beginning. If you're not used to this blog, if you're not used to the things that have been exposed here, you may find it difficult for you. I'm asking God simply, how can this be happening on such a grand scale? How can this be happening on such a big scale? Expecting God to maybe show me something, you know, like, oh, a lot of them have decided in the back times that they were going to pretend to be men. Look at them. This is how they get the surgery. This is how they get the change. What does God show me? God shows me the government. The Lord shows me the government. And when I say working day and night, busy, busy bees. He showed me the government working, busy in factories, making women, making them. I hope you're hearing me. The government has been making women ever since they've also been making Ford and Buick. Just a moment, please. The same way that these cars are made in factories, Ford and Buick, since time immemorial, I saw them making women. A woman is the easiest thing to make. She has a mold, a look, a shape, and you can make dolls out of her. And yes, I was yelling. I was yelling when I was writing this down. There was a yell in my soul. Instead of maybe showing me men starting their transformation by wearing heels, practicing how to walk in the heels, and maybe hiding their bigger heads and their hard jawline under wigs, and practicing with clothing and other ways to soften their appearance to look like women, the Lord yanked me directly into a vision of a factory where I saw them dipping wax molds into something white and creamy. That when you bake, there's this thing called the KitchenAid. And this KitchenAid is kind of different from the other mixers. The old mixers used to have two little legs that come down and then they go rrr, and then they mix up the cake. The KitchenAid is more an industrial setting mixer, the way that it's shaped. Big bowl, and it has something like an arrow in it. It's shaped like this, like an arrow, and that's the mixer, and it simply turns and churns and churns. And God is showing me a big vat of what will form flesh of women. This is what will form the flesh of women. And they were dipping wax molds into that thing and then pulling it up and hanging it to dry. And it was making the mold of a white woman's body, the whole body. If you have ever watched, please, I'm reading you directly. You can either come with me or you cannot. If you've ever watched the old-time scary movie, then you know how they used to do it. It's very different from the way they do scary movies now. They will show you a bit of the monster. And in those days, I think they used to have live orchestras playing the song. And so they're showing you a bit of the monster or the woman's climbing the stairs. And then when they're about to reveal the scary thing to you or show you who the killer is, then they have the music that goes to tana, 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 tana. It always was like that. Tana. That's exactly what the Lord was doing. Seeing the factory, seeing the mix, and then all of a sudden I just see these molds coming out, and then the Lord just zooms it in and it just goes, ta-da! Celestial, look at how they make people. It has been one tough day of a day today. That's all I will say. That's how it was when Yah was showing me the factory. They work their night and day to make bots, android women. And the majority of the android women that I saw coming up were exclusively white and blonde. But God told me they make other hair colors and other skin colors too, but nowhere in the same amount as the tall blonde dolls. And the Lord was impressing upon my heart. I'm just staring at this thing, right? I'm looking and I'm thinking, why is it always me? And then the Lord is telling me, oh no, don't worry. They make other hair colors. They make the brunettes and they make other skin colors. They make the other darker skin tones. But he said, demand informs supply, exactly as it is in business. And he said, nowhere on earth has there been more demand for the blonde white lady than in America. Not even in, so this is not even in Denmark, where they tend to pop up more like that just naturally. He said nowhere. He said that this thing has been shaped and put before them as a standard. The tall blonde, the tall blue-eyed blonde, and then after her, the tall green-eyed blonde, and then their poor sister, the tall brown-eyed blonde. And by the time the brown eyes are coming out, the hair is not as platinum, as Marilyn as before. God was saying, oh no, the demand informs the supply. The highest demand for this aesthetic is here in the United States. And so that is why they produce these blonde dolls. And so as I was seeing these dolls coming out with the living silicone flesh, they would come dripping out of the vat. Then the music would go ta-da, like that, man. And it zoomed in finally on one doll. And this doll had the exact body, the exact upright breast, and the exact dipped in waist and proportions of Barbie, the famous toy. I mean, that life-size thing that came out when it finally zoomed, because I was looking from behind and then it would just came close, and I basically saw that they were pulling life-sized Barbie out of that vat. The Barbie doll from Mattel is the exact proportions that they use to make the living silicone android woman that is everywhere. God said, this doll is everywhere in the population, Celestial. It is everywhere. He said it is copulating with young men. It is marrying young men. This doll participates in the census and says things like, yes, my husband works, but I'm here. I can answer your questions. We are a household of 5, and I'm the mother here. He said that they are so firm and energetic in bed to the point that a man thinks, I found my dream. I found my dream. But God says it is living death in that bed with them, drying up their essence, using their money to get them down to poverty levels. He said, the doll will sit at the table with you and gaslight you to the point of madness, then look at you and smile the brightest smile, which over time makes the man think that he is crazy or accusing, but he is not. God says he is in the house with Satan, but he does not know it. And I will just tell you briefly what God was showing me as I was watching these life-size dolls come out. It's a mold, okay? So it is exactly, it is not a skeleton like some of these synthetics that I've seen. What it is there's this doll that you who went to fashion school use. You know your doll. She has shoulders, but no arms. And then she has a very upright and perky bust. And then she is dipped in sharply at the waist and then out like this at the hips. And then for most of you, your doll cuts off just below hip level. And you're supposed to put jackets, you're supposed to put dresses, you're supposed to put blouses on your doll and learn how to sew and get female proportions from your doll. So just imagine something like that, the basic doll shape, but then the whole body. So then this one will have a head, the mold, it will have arms, it will have everything. And then they just dip it into the living silicone, and then she picks up flesh. And if they want to make her bustier, if they want to make her more fleshy, maybe a size 8, a size 10, 12, then they will simply dip her again. And dip her again and dip her again. And she simply picks up layers of silicone flesh. They just dip her and put her to dry, and then she comes back for another dipping, and then she just gets bustier and bigger. Or if they want her super skinny, size 0, size 2, then she just gets maybe 1 or 2 dippings just to have some meat on her bones, and then she comes. As I'm looking at you and you're looking at me, you know that you have seen these people. You know that you have seen them walking around. You know that they are all on the runway. And you know that if you spent a lifetime eating only parsley and prayer, you will never get to that shape. You have tried. You have tried. You have done bulimia. You have tried anorexia. You have never achieved that runway shape. There now perhaps is a kind of understanding for you why you haven't been able to pull it off. So he was saying that these dolls, the android silicone living doll that comes in all shapes, but certain shapes and certain skin colors are made more. And let's be reasonable. Let's look at the US population. Who's the majority? Why would you make a ton of black dolls in a nation that doesn't have a ton of black people? I think we're only 13%, maybe 14 or 15 over time. But if the majority of the population looks one way, then why are you making a doll that's not going to leave the shelves? Why are you going to be seeding a form of Satan into the population that is not the desirable form of Satan? You will seed into the market what you know the market will pick up and take home and be with. And now listen to what God says they do. They are so firm-bodied and they have so much energy in bed until a man starts to think, I found my dream. I found my dream. Because this is one of the greatest inroads to the male heart. It is intimacy. It is the intimacy that is only supposed to happen between a man and a wife. If a man finds that at his own energy level, then God was showing me this man with a girl, and he was like, in his brain, he was thinking, I found my dream. I found my dream, because this person will keep up his energy and will never tell him that she has a headache. And then God was showing me again that another thing the doll does is it uses up a man's money. So you will then just see the bank account dropping because the shoes, the bags, the trips to this and that. I need to stay in this hotel because I saw it on TikTok. Young men, God was showing. Even older men get sucked into this. I need to stay here. I need to stay there. I need this. I need that. I need the whole Cartier matched ring set and bracelet set. I need to stack the bangles. You that stack bangles, you know what I'm talking about, because I learned this thing from TikTok. There's bangles, silver, gold, silver, gold, silver, and you must stack the bangles 23. And then if anyone cuts off your arm, basically they can buy themselves a mansion in the south of France just with what was on your arm. So God was showing that it's to bring poverty, but also there is a horrific side to this doll. And this is what I saw. I saw the doll, a total moving normal person. I will even tell you the movie. I have not watched this movie. The Lord brought this movie into my mind to let me know. This is what having one of these dolls is like. I know the minute I say the movie, you'll be like, because you've all watched it, but I have not. I just saw the trailer. The doll was sitting at the table, living, beautiful, blonde with big eyes. She and the man were having dinner. They were having dinner at home. They were not having dinner outside. The man said something, and then the doll said something. And inside was this, it's almost like a sting, like the sting of a scorpion. Inside her words were the sting of a scorpion. And the guy got stung, but he didn't perceive it. He didn't perceive that he had gotten stung. And so he said something again, and then she said something with more of a sting. And then he looked at her puzzled, but he kept eating, and he was trying to tell his story. It was his story that he was telling. She was just giving commentary. Then he continued with his story, and then he said that, and she was like, I wonder why this and that and that. And the thing had gaslighting in it. The thing had this, you are very stupid. You are so stupid, human. Inside it. Until the man started to doubt his own story. He started to doubt his own ability. She was gaslighting him so subtly, just the way that Satan, if you imagine that Satan was sitting there, Satan will be able to gaslight a person and make the person think that everything going wrong was all him, until the guy was like, what are you trying to say? He finally outright asked, what are you trying to say? And then she widened her eyes very big and she was like, what do you mean? I'm just listening to your story. And the man felt so discombobulated. He felt, God actually showed me the insecurity that entered the man. And he was just like a vase that you give a push. And just when it's going and it might fall, then you just put your hand there and stop it. Now that vase knows that it was shaking. The vase knows how it feels to know, oh, I almost smashed myself. But then when you put a hand there and stop it, then you say, what shake? What shake, honey? You weren't shaking. You're fine. God was showing me that a lifetime with one of these dolls, the man will go crazy. The man will literally become a shaking, drinking, smoking, insecure kind of ball of nerves man. And it will be the doll who did that to him. The movie that God gave me to show how it feels for men who are with dolls. He says, your wife, your partner will be like Age of Adeline. Your wife, your partner, your girlfriend will be like the Age of Adeline. She will do Benjamin Buttonistics on you. You will have birthday after birthday and begin to carry yourself to where all flesh goes. She will be like that. And be like that. And God was showing me that when it starts to get non-convincing, they go back to the factory to have just a layer or two added on for a weight. They can have wrinkles etched in, but God says the general look of your partner will be Age of Adeline. Age of Adeline, for those who have not watched, is some woman that came from somewhere. And the reason I'm saying that is because I have no clue where Adeline came from because I didn't watch the movie. But I know the comments will give the whole movie in no time. Adeline came from somewhere. I don't know what Adeline is. All I know is that I was watching the snippets. Adeline lived forever without getting old. And apparently, when Adeline lived too long in a place and people were like, aren't you 60? Then Adeline would move to another part of America and start a whole new life. Adeline is one of those people who have lived through the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s. What else is there? The 2020s or the 2000s. Adeline is one of those people who just glides through the ages because Adeline is a thing. They were trying to romanticize it in that movie, I know, because the violins were busy. Adeline is witchcraft. Adeline is evil incarnate. Age of Adeline shows you the non-aging among us. And I will tell you this. When God gave me the prophecies on synthetics, because I'm telling you, I was starting to have a hard time in this prophecy, but I give all glory to God because by holding his hand, he was able to bring me through it. And I hope I'm doing a good job bringing you through it. I was saying, but Lord, now I'm confused. I wrote, but now I was severely confused. Is God saying that the synthetic woman is now a man? Why am I asking that? Because we started off talking about trans. So now I ask God, how can this be going on at such a great rate? And I'm expecting him to show me, oh no, there's actually a hidden place where all the trans go. And they're simply getting more and more trans. And immediately he flips to some factory to show me non-humans, synthetics, bots. They are real. They exist. If this is your first time, just sit down on something and calm down. It's not only humanity that is living here. So I was thinking, is the synthetic woman now a man? Is that what God is saying? And Yah said to me, no. The dolls are just one reason that the female demographic is so high in America. It is not real females. It is the dolls that are also helping to drive up the numbers of women in America. So before I then go to just remind you of my own prophecies that I've covered here in the past, so you can go watch the video and definitely go back to the blog. I think two of these are written prophecies and only one of them is pretty recent. So it's just a video. There was a man on this internet after I'd covered my synthetics, covered them and whatever, I think a year later, there's people on this YouTube that have channels and they are so shadow banned because of what they say. So the only reason that I see these people is because once I say those things, the algorithm then thinks, oh, she is the family member of that. So then the person will appear on the side. It's either the algorithm doing it or in fact, it's probably God doing it. This man appeared on the side and this man was doing a freeze frame of an old movie. I can't tell you what the movie is. I just know there was no color in the movie. And I don't want to venture and say what the movie is because what's coming to my mind is this movie called Some Like It Hot. But I don't know if Some Like It Hot is a black and white movie because I've never seen it. So I don't know what's in it. It was a black and white movie, and it was a scene where a lot of women, blonde women, were gathered on a patio around a table. They were talking. And the man was saying, "Look at them, androids." And I thought, he said, "Look at them. They're all androids. The serpent has created them in our midst. These are not real women. These are not God's women." He was saying, "See that one? That's an android. See that other one?" Now this man is pointing to famous white women in America. Don't actually think that there was a single robot sitting there. It was normal women, famous women. It's just that I don't recognize any of their faces. But he was saying, that's an android. That one is a serpent. So this man was differentiating between what he said were Nephal, the fallen ones, Nephilim. This is the people who are serpent inside. Many different types of Nephilim. But there's some who are serpent inside. I'm going to say everything. It's all coming up. There are people who are serpent inside, and they look just like you and me. They are snakes, actual from the jungle, ancestral same family, except that because they are Nephilim, they will not be the size of a snake in the forest. They're human sized. They are human sized. And even I have seen these in my dreams. I have shared, I think there's one prophecy, it will be part of this here, where I said that God showed me just the way you walk to work. It was winter. So I had a dream where God showed me, excuse me, please, my normal route, I was going to the train station. So to get to this train station, you walk a couple blocks to the train station. And then as you're going to the train station, other people also have the right to walk. And I said that I was standing and I was walking, and then God had people coming past me who were snakes. Some of the people were fully snakes, okay? Snake head, snake body, snake everything. Inside an overcoat, but the overcoat is hanging open. And you can see, snakes have that lined belly. Their belly looks like linoleum, like kitchen flooring with the lines. The snake is going like this, moving forward, wearing a coat, snake head, snake body. The thing moves past me. I'm standing on the street. The next one comes. It has a human head and a human upper. The body is a serpent. The thing is going. It's a man. Overcoat is open because it's winter. It should be shut, but God has the coat open because it's a learning moment for his child. The snake is moving. I'm looking. I just felt hopeless. Because why? Did God put me in Manhattan to see that? No. God had me in my own neighborhood to let me know. They live right here with you. They live right here with you. In the apartments around you, at the same stores. The Lord has done this to me in every single place that I've lived in Brooklyn. Every single place. Another dream that he gave me when I lived in another part of Brooklyn. The store that all of us go to. The store that used to have all the best Asian herbs. It used to have all the best different types of honey. Not just one type of honey. It would have sometimes up to 20 different types of honey. Things that even supermarkets can't give you. It was one of those stores that were managed by Mexicans. It was 2 Mexican brothers, and they also had their sisters working. Every single day or week, there is a need for people in the community to go to that store. It was a big store, fresh fruit and different things like that. I had a dream once that I went to that store, as I always do, because that's where I would buy my honey. I entered the store and I looked up. It's one of those places where it has a raised area for the owners of the store to sit. The Mexican guy and his brother who work the till were human. A lot of the people in the store were creatures. Creatures. I've spoken of my dream where I said I went to the bank. We're all standing in the line for the bank. I'm about the 3rd or the 4th person. I said all of a sudden, the lights in the bank go out. And the man who was just in front of me becomes illuminated as something else. I can't remember what he was, but I know that he was something else. And then in that same dream, that man was a creature, right? He was a creature. We are talking about the juxtaposition of creatures This is actual fallen Nephilim wearing human outers with us, but God is also bringing in the existence of synthetics, bots. In the bank, the man turned and he looked at me, and the bank went dark, just like a movie where everything goes dark and then a spotlight is on the man. And I'm thinking, who will save me from this man? And before I could think, spotlight, spotlight, spotlight began to go on in a bank that is right here in my area. And different people began to be highlighted, and they were either fallen like this man, or they were android people, meaning robots. Their eyes lit up red. All the reaction video people are going to have a fun time with this, and I could care less, because I'm thinking of the souls of actual brothers and sisters in the faith who need to know that God has said for so long that we are not alone in this place. Every dream that I'm describing to you, hunting will take place afterwards, and the names will be dropped. I'm just giving them to you by memory, because I have too many prophecies to remember every title that God has given. That dream in the bank, the people, either when the spotlight hit them, they were actually revealed to either be actual Nephilim. And with Nephilim, they can be bird-headed, a bird head with a human person. This thing has existed since ancient Egypt. Imagine thinking that a thing will be drawn on the wall in ancient Egypt, and then the Egyptians were only drawing it for fun. Imagine thinking that they were so bored that they just thought, let's draw some jackal-headed people, lion-headed people, wolf-headed people, eagle-headed people. Let's just do it. And then the American Indians were like, we want to do it too. And then the American Indians began to draw the same kinds of creatures on their walls. Have you looked at the American Indian totem pole? Have you looked at it? Have you seen that it will have the head of a dog or a wolf in it? And then it will have the head of another animal? It will have the head of maybe a fox? Have you looked at American Indian culture and noticed how they divide themselves sometimes by their different tribes? And then the different heads, the jackal, the wolf, the this will go up. And at the top, who's always at the top with the wings spread openly? It's an eagle. Their totem poles always end with an eagle at the top, but they have the serpent in it. They have the wolf in it. So other cultures, right, that are not necessarily westernized, will have all this information available. But then the westernized cultures will always say, you know, these are the rantings of someone who doesn't have access to their medication. All I can say is insult the Holy Spirit more. And when the time comes that screaming begins to happen in many homes, guess whose home will not have that? At least not to the same decibel. It is the home of the person that God is always showing these things. There is a prophecy on the Master's Voice that is definitely just simply entitled Synthetics. Synthetics. So by the time I made Synthetics, I think I made Synthetics this year, or I made it in 2023, end of 2023. But that was because God told me go back and finish the prophecies. By the time I made Synthetics, I had talked about non-human people for so long. I had made so many other prophecies concerning them. So you can hear just a few of them. Just give me a moment. So this first witness that I'm going to share with you is called Aliens. It was from my Alien series. It's from the Alien series. So it's called Aliens, Humanoids and Serpent People. Humanoids and Serpent People. And this prophecy is from July the 6th, 2021. And this is the banner picture in case you're looking for that. And it just so happens that this prophecy contains, excuse me, please. It contains two of the elements that I'm talking to you about right now in this prophecy. It contains robotoid people. And I will show you a picture that I mercifully found to perfectly show what God had shown me. I will show you a picture of a robot woman, and I will also tell you a little bit about the shape-shifting people, the snake people, and also how God showed me that people who are not people, when they get around people who are full of God's nature, when they get around people who are full of the Holy Spirit, then They will start to glitch and everything. I'm not going to go too deep in it because you can always go back and watch this prophecy. You can always go back and read it. But God, I was trying to read my Bible one night. Okay, so I'm just going to read. I was trying to read my Bible tonight, but the voice of the Lord kept beating in my chest. They have to be exposed. They have to be exposed. They have to be exposed. So eventually I came to write down the prophecy that the Lord was trying to give me. And what he said to me was hollowed out, plasticine, robotoid people, empty shells, no wires, full of hardware, metal chips, not people, serpents among men, false humans, serpents mixed with human flesh, not people. And then right after that, I started to see dolls sitting in a warehouse. So these dolls had already been made and they were sitting and there were wires and tubes coming from their head. And the understanding that God gave me is that, Celestial, you see these dolls that are pre-made in different shapes. They were male and female, different colors. God showed me that anytime a doll is needed to go out in the real world, this is to fall in love, to make a girl fall in love with it, or to make a boy fall in love with it, they will take the doll and then they will connect it to something, and then they load a consciousness on the doll exactly the way you get a new computer and then you take your disk drives and you make a transfer from your drives to the computer, and then the computer basically now has a brain. The computer's brain is everything you put on it, or you can download all your information from the cloud and put it on your laptop or your desktop, and then now it has a brain, it has a computer, it's thinking. Before that, it's just an empty shell. It may not even have software or any kind of Microsoft stuff on it. It's just blank from the factory. So God was showing me that they have these people in reserve. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And then anytime one is needed, they will just give it a brain and they will let it stay at the factory floor. And it gets to get used to walking without the lurch. They're just like newborn babies, these things, when they're made. They make the doll. A doll is different from a clone, by the way. The clone will open its eyes and will need very little downtime because the clone is actually grown off the human material. So if you have a mole, your clone is coming with a mole. If you have a scar, even if the clone is newborn, the clone is coming with the scar because it's coming to be an exact replica of you in the world. That means if you need some time off and you go off to some mountain retreat, but you want to keep your job, your clone will go to work and your clone will not struggle, because when the clone is made, they give it all your memories, all your everything. You've seen American movies, right? Where there was a clone and then the clone will want the man's wife, and then the clone will come and then the woman will be stuck. Which is the real husband? They both will be able to say, remember when we went to so-and-so place? It is actually very hard to get the clone off your back. It is actually very hard to get the clone off your back because the clone has all your memories and the clone thinks like you think. And so when you see the woman struggling to know which is it, sometimes the clone comes and steals the person's life and the person doesn't know. The spouse doesn't know because it's a perfect replica. The android is not like that. The android needs to have a learning phase. And again, I can point you to another American movie. That movie is called The Fifth Element. It is an old movie, but you can actually see in it an android type person played by Mila, I think it's Mila Jovovich. She plays someone who has to learn about humanity by watching very rapid clips of human history and human everything played into her mind, and then she picks it up because she's not a person. So if you can find an old movie like that showing you that these things are done, then the last step now is to just get over the incredulity, to understand that you live in a country whereby made for TV is actually translated as made for you. That TV is there to inform you of everything that has been done and that shall be done in the future. And so here is the picture of the android doll. And I found it, and I found it in such a way. Look at that doll. I wish you could see how stunningly pretty she is. And what God was telling me was, no one will actually know that that's an iron skeleton in that thing, because once her middle part is closed up, once the middle part is closed up, God says, please hear, it was his words, not mine. He says that this doll can come to a party and laugh and generalize and make eye contact. And God said, which man is it? When this stunning supermodel type thing looks at you, he said, which of them is going to be able to resist that doll? This doll can kill you, sir. You can have what you think is an amazing encounter at a party, at a bar, and follow it home. And it can kill you just for fun. And then you will just be another unsolved statistic. Because as you can see, she has a titanium skeleton. She's not built like the rest of us, that you can just shake like a doll. The doll can shake you. These dolls, in the prophecy that I'm currently doing now, which is called They Will Need a Chromosome Test, the Beautiful Men of America, God was showing me that this doll has so much strength that at the time of intimacy with a man, all the doll has to do is crush its knees and the man's rib cage. Please, you see my two fingers? You see how God made the rib cage to host the heart and keep it strong like this? It has the capacity to pin a man and crush him until his rib cage, the two pieces will become jagged and will start to go in like this and puncture his organs. The girl can look at the man and do that, and he will die lying there thinking he's having what he thought was a good time. It can do that and just go fingerprintless because it's a doll. We need to think these things through, these late night outs, these people that were just meeting all over the place. So in this one is where it also had, I think, the snake people. And God was showing me how when Christians are around them, they glitch and they become so uncomfortable. And God was also talking about some of the things that he said we should not accept, such as webbed digits. And he was showing me that human beings, we have a little bit of this thing. This tiny little rise here between the fingers, that's the so-called, that's barely nothing. It's just skin. Some people have webbing that comes all the way up here. The webbing in the fingers rises all the way up here. They have that stuff under their arms and everything. That's not God, okay? It's only the duck-billed platypus, fish, ducks that have that. You cannot explain that stuff away to yourself because you're trying to, I didn't want them to feel bad. Close your mouth and move away. That's what he said. So this is one witness that you can see here that I've covered. A second one that I've covered, the prophecy is called Synthetics. And it simply was talking about a man who was not a human being at all. He worked on a farm. He had so much energy. He was so hardworking. The man was tireless, okay? He worked. He was the overseer precisely because he was so good. He could do what it took 2 or 3 farm hands to do. He could do it themselves. So when they were repairing the fences and one guy has to lift up these heavy wood poles, you know, when the cows have come and knocked down parts of the fence, then the men need to go and repair. And one worker has to hold up the other thing while the other guy is tying the wire around it and one person is holding the pole steady. My guy would lift up the pole and tie it and clip and move on to the next one. And he was just repairing the fence while the guys were doing the best that they could in the other direction. He was that kind of hardworking. He used to come down. The farm lady, the wife of the farmer, the main farmer, she would come down at about 6 a.m. and she would make this big breakfast. And all the top level staff were invited to the main house to come and eat. So that man was also invited to come and eat. He would sit with these people. He would eat the fluffy scrambled eggs. He would eat the pancakes. He would talk with them. I don't know where that food was going because that man didn't have an alimentary canal. He didn't have guts. He didn't have a stomach. I have no idea where the food that went into that man. Maybe it went into like a trash bin in his foot. I cannot say. He was eating food with the people, but he had no need to pee and he had no need to poop. And when he went to his place at night, he simply lay on the bed all night and waited until morning and then would get up and go and work. And this man had a dog that loved him. He had a dog that loved him. Whenever he would go out on his rides, whenever he would go out on the sheep and whatever, the dog loved him. But God showed me that the dog could not smell the man. The man had no smell of sweat, no smell of manness. Like, this is who I am. This is my person smell. So sometimes when the man got out of sight of the dog, then the dog would simply lay down and wait for the man to come back. Meaning the dog could not track the man to say, oh, I'm following my owner. I'll find my owner. No. The dog loved the man based on spatial recognition, meaning that he knew the shape of the man and the man was kind to him, played with him. And so the dog loved that shape But the dog would never be able, if the dog was blindfolded, to pick that man out of a lineup by smell. Impossibility. So this is the kind of information that God is bringing here. Now to go back to this person who appeared at the side of my video, I think 2023, after I'd covered a lot of this stuff from 2021, 2020, I've been talking about this type of being. That man was saying that we here, humanity, we don't understand that we are greatly outnumbered by the workings and the mechanics and the creation of Satan. And I did not think that that man was lying, because I have my own prophecy where the Lord was saying, when it comes to Nephilim, pick your Nephilim, mermaids, sirens, things from the crypt, abominable snowman, yeti. What is the other thing? The Wendigo, snake people. Pick your Nephilim. God says that when it comes to Nephilim, when it comes to aliens, their presence here on earth that we were given as a gift, the Lord says that the ratio is 6 to 10. 6 of them, no, 6 to 4. 6 of them to 4 of us. 6 of them to 4 of us. And when I made the video, I explained to every listener very well that we all know the game where you draw the line and then you put a rope and then both teams can pull. 5 on this side, 5 on this side. When we play that game, it's understood that the winning team either has a better strategy for manipulating the rope or they're just stronger on that side. But when God tells you that when you do a game of 5 against 5, that he would have to say, wait, you over there, cross there, and then cross a Nephilim to the other side to make up the Nephilim team. 6 out of every 10, God says, it's not people. Then why are we reckless when we're outside? And why are we reckless when it comes to choosing life partners and copulating and things? Now do we understand why God says you cannot go and bed down with anyone and that you should only do it in a marriage? And God is expecting that before you enter into a marriage, there's fasting, there's prayer, and there's oversight before you go and get married. So you can hear it. The snake people prophecy with that android is one witness. The synthetic man, that there are people walking around in this America. God was showing me beautiful mountains, maybe Montana, just beautiful backdrop, blue skies. This man was a cattle person. And the Lord also showed me that in the town, for it was a farm, but you know, they all go into town. God was showing me that in the town, women were dying for that man, and that man had no interest in women whatsoever. He was so tall and so good looking. Clint Eastwood when he was younger, but better. The women wanted him so bad, he had no interest in them. He only lived to work exactly like a robot. So I've given you the first witness about the snake people and the android women. Second witness about synthetics. Third witness that 6 out of 10 of us are actually the fallen. And the last one I will simply remind you of is a prophecy. Again, the name escapes me, where the Lord was talking about this beautiful blonde woman that was made of glass. Who remembers that prophecy? I said the woman was glass. She was all glass. She was glass, and her nature was, you know when you're pouring glass when it's really hot? The glass is very mobile, and then as it begins to, just before it cools, that's when the glass blowers blow it to create the beautiful shapes. If you could find a person that was constantly in that shape where glass can move and therefore be able to do its hair and do its makeup without ever hardening, that is what that woman was. And I said that she had come to the factory to receive what? A paint touch-up job. And then everyone filled my comments with this old movie that is called Death Becomes Her. I don't know, were those people made of glass? Anyway, I don't know what they were made of, but that's what most people came in. So you go and take a look at Death Becomes Her, and people are right. So the glass lady, please excuse the noise. The glass lady came back to the factory because why? She was starting to experience chipping. Her skin tone was blowing off. Her skin tone was I guess it was coming off with wear and tear and everything. This man, the artist, had different spray cans of color. He had different spray cans of color, and God showed me the artist taking the spray cans and asking her, which would you like? And you know, the two colors look almost exactly the same. And she pointed to that one. And then he took it and he put it in it makes a mist. So he put it in a mister. And then he misted her. He misted her all over, even the areas here. And I think that these are the areas that show when you're in a bikini or something. He re-misted her to touch up her color. She was not a person. And you could actually see everywhere the color had gone, the glass that she was made of. She was made of glass. But for her face, he took time to redo her face exactly the way people do makeup. With her face, he didn't just spray. No, he was working now with brush, rouge, blush to give her a permanent, lovely glow. And when I saw that thing, my only question was, there's no way that a human man will ever accept to be with this thing. And all the Lord answered me was just to say, they know. As if to say, don't look at these prophecies based on your own little Christian heart. There's no way. You would be amazed at what other human beings are contented to live with. You would be amazed how many beautiful men are watching this right now and their famous husbands next to them are saying, don't mind her. I still love you. I know all that you are, brother, and I still love you. I thought to myself, no human being will consent to live with a non-human glass entity. And God said, the husbands of these things know. They know. Who do you think pays for these jobs? And that woman basically had no money. In fact, she had no money because God was saying that this thing is sustained, I think, from a higher level. I made the prophecy some months ago, that the whole thing is sustained from a higher level. So now you are hearing the Lord talk about artificial female numbers. Artificial female numbers bumped up by men living as women. And then he just spins in the same message and says that the numbers of women are bumped up by men. And then just like that, I will read to you from my notes. Then Yah went back to trans women. He said the only way to know if the woman that you have married is a real woman when you are not sure is through this thing called a chromosome test. Chromosome test. I'm continuing. The only way to know if the woman you have married is a real woman when you are not sure is to do a chromosome test. That test will prove what a person is versus what they were born as. You cannot change genetic information as it was originally expressed. So taking the test will prove what is a man versus what is a woman. And this has to do with the fact that you can dress up, you can change your face, you can change your hair, you can do the makeup, you can have the breast, you can even have the sex change. But the chromosomes inside you, they carry the information if you were born as an XX or an XY. And that is what the Lord is saying, that you cannot change this basic genetic information, even if you have fixed the external to a place where, as I spoke of the women who were suspended in the beginning and I was looking at them, it's undetectable. Your genes will basically tell on you. Your DNA, your sex chromosomes will tell on you. And so here is basically, this is not even towards the end. God said, if you're a man of a certain age and you have not yet had a child and you wanted one, but for some reason, your wife has not had one. And then he paused. So he was talking to me. I remember this part. I was extremely sleepy. If you're a man of a certain age and you have not yet had a child and you always wanted one, but for some reason your wife has not had one, then he paused. So I wrote here, stop. And then he went on to say from a different angle, you might have children. You have or you once had a loving, vibrant home, but those children were adopted. They were beloved children all the same, but they were not yours. And then he paused. Stop. Then he says, then the possibility is high, not just high, but cripplingly high that you are with or you were with a man. He says, it does not take away the empty wombs of natural women who struggle to give birth. It does not take away the fact that feminine infertility does occur. But the reality is also there, that there are millions of men who are married to men without knowing it. So I've said this thing before in the past, said usually it will come up during the prophecies about homosexuality. You'll be speaking about that, and I'll say, and that also includes many of you who have married to men without knowing it. These were my old prophecies on homosexuality. I would say, and that also includes you who are married to men without knowing it. So now you understand why you've been wanting that baby and you've never had that baby, is because a man can never give you a baby. God says, if these things apply to you, it might be nearly inevitable that it is a man that you are with, or it is a man that you were with. If you are an older man, it is plausible. Plausible means the possibility is there simply because. The reason it's plausible. Plausible means, well, it could happen. The Lord says the only reason that he's calling it plausibility, if the person is much, much older, you're in your 80s or something, is because the technology wasn't there to graphically fool you to that extent. He said it had not yet reached any level where this kind of deception could be done on such a mass scale or be so widespread across the population. But Yah said, if you're just a middle-aged man, then the certainty increases so much. If you're just a middle-aged man, then it goes from becoming plausible to a certainty. He says, based on the truth of how many men are living among the population as women undetected, he says, it's a certainty that if you've always had this infertility struggle story, and you've always had this and you've always had that, and you've never been able to have kids come into the family until you were finally forced to adopt or foster, then he says it's a certainty that the woman you met and loved and married is male, born male, now living as a woman, or if they have passed on, then they lived as a woman. Says this person has been your lifelong companion, your friend, your lover, your wife. They mothered your children from a previous marriage, or they adopted with you and they raised children with you, but they are not a mother because they are or were a man. So I then fell asleep. The weight of these things was great. I then fell asleep under the heavy weight of these things, and here is what Yah continued to show me. I was seeing the Miss Universe pageant, the Miss America pageant, the various state pageants. This is Miss Michigan, Miss Ohio, Miss New York, Miss California. I was seeing the many beauty pageants that take place in America, and I was seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of beautiful women, not just at one time. He was showing me just historically, even before they used to have this swimsuit competition, before they started showing so much skin and stuff like that, I was seeing women who are in beauty pageants across the ages, standing on brightly lit stages, right? Either in swimwear or in the ball gown category. So I was either seeing swimwear and the swimwear was changing according to the era, or I was seeing these glamorous ball gowns. We all know about the ball gown category of the Miss America and the various Miss so-and-so beauty pageants. And I saw these women just smiling so brightly and waving while bright lights were on them on the stage. And something like an overhead camera kept swooping in to give me a wide view of them from the top. This camera's perspective, whenever I'm talking about it, this is actually the eye of the Lord. This is how God sees the thing, from the widest possible, most obvious angle, looking in every different location over a period of time. He sees what we do not see. So every time I see that swooping thing just trying to take in all the areas, then I know that God is giving a wide angle view of what is taking place and also what has come long before from his perspective of truth. So I saw these beauty queens going back to the days where most of them would favor this high beehive bun. That was one type of hairstyle I saw. And then another type of hairstyle I saw is that big bump. The hair would be a very big bump and then flipping out like that. And coming to the era of the heavy spray tan. So there was a time when people would just do too much. One application was never enough. You have 10 and then you look like someone from ancient Egypt, but you're blonde. I started seeing that in the 80s. And then it began to sweep forward more and more to modern times, always showing the swimwear category, the ball gown category. This swimwear category is there for a reason. If a man can fool you by visibility in a bikini that he's a woman, then you're cooked. It's not only you who are cooked, so men don't feel bad. The women who wanted to have those bodies are cooked. The society as a group is cooked. Swimwear, ball gown, smiling, waving, and then God just came right and spoiled the whole thing. Those are men there in the dream. The smiling, waving, this and that, and there's a voice coming to you live from the studios of... That's exactly how it is. No need to exaggerate. I'm dreaming, I'm seeing just beautiful American women across the ages, some of them too tan at times. But they're all worked out and they're beautiful and they're waving and God is showing the different eras. And then you just hear his voice. Those are men there. There's many men there among them. So many men living successfully as women to the point that they won awards for it and nobody knew what they were. And I just explained to you about Christine Jorgensen from 1953. But is she alone? Is she alone? Is Christine Jorgensen the only person? Does Christine Jorgensen have tennis awards? Does she? Has she won the US Open and various Grand Slams? In fact, I'm not going to hold back my words. Ever since I started this series, if you're someone who's active on social media, then your eyes will bear out what I will say next. Ever since I started this series, specifically when it comes to Serena Williams, first she came out with the Real Woman 2 maxi freezers of breast milk. That's what she put on. Then the next thing that her people advised her to do is fire back and kill the rumors, for this is no rumor. God is not into rumors. God is 100% into facts. But then tone it down and get eyes off it by posting the demure trend. So she's posting herself now as mindful. This is the perfect place to bring this in, actually. Thank you, Lord. Posting herself as very demure and very mindful and very respectful with it. And saying that she's 100% woman. So she's posting so many things. Methinks the gentleman doth protest too much. Posting so many things to say, I'm a woman. And Ciara is doing the same. And they're backing each other up. And I spoke of this saying, can you really put off the eye of the Lord in judgment by appealing to other human beings to back you up? What can other human beings do for you when Jesus Christ is on your tail? But then after that, an article came out remembering my pregnancy journey. And then that article came out. And then imagine when another subscriber came and said, it's not doubling down anymore, Celestial. It's tripling down. Then she and Jamie Lee Curtis, Sir James, then went on a breakfast show to discuss the particular problems that women face. In this country, there are people who have doubles. This is the perfect prophecy to just bring it out to you. And then you use your selective judgment. You use your wisdom, because I use the Lord's wisdom. I use the Holy Spirit's eye. But you use whatever you have. If you have the Lord showing you, then see. In this country, there are people who have doubles. President Joe Biden is one of those people. Guaranteed. President Joe Biden is one of those people who, if you can accept it, if you can receive it, wears something over his head. And if anyone is wearing something over their head, then we know that thing. If it's not a balaclava, it's not black with eye holes. That's a balaclava. That's for those who are breaking in and conducting thievery. The rest of the people are those then who are wearing masks. This is a country of people. I'm saying it here. Think what you like. Because I've seen it with my own eyes. And I went to the Lord because it wasn't unrest that entered my heart. I'll be honest, it was actually fear. I went to the Lord about it. There is footage of President Joseph Biden. This happened maybe in June or July. They were having an event at the White House. They had Kirk Franklin there and everything else. And there's a bit of footage where somebody is performing on the stage and President Biden is standing there and Kamala Harris is standing there and they're all standing there. And I saw this thing on TikTok. So I was thinking, oh, what new type of jest are we having? What new event is this? And I'm looking at the thing and I don't know what they're saying. They're all vibing. They're all wearing light tan and cream clothing, except for the president. Kamala's wearing the light tan clothing. Kirk Franklin is wearing it. And then President Biden is standing there. And as I'm looking at the man, I perceive that above his eyelids, there is a cut like so deep. Exactly when you will put something over your head, like in that movie that Tom Cruise was in, Mission Impossible, he would put their face on over his head, and then later they would tear it off. There's even another movie called Face Off. I'm telling you serious things. Please listen. Please try to overcome your natural urge to scoff, to mock. These things are the reason why. These things are the reason why you have a celestial in the first place. If this wasn't a mocking nation, we would never be getting these kinds of prophecies. If this wasn't a nation that practices deception, why would I even need to exist? I would exist, but maybe in a different designation. I exist exactly as I am because God knows that this is a nation. Imagine the irony. The nation that fosters lies, that lives in lies and believes lies. The only time America doesn't believe in lies are when the lies are being exposed. That is when she gets her Harvard degree mind. And then everything, the truth becomes the lie. The lie that she already believed and accepted, that's her truth. But when the time comes to tear down the lie and expose it, then it's a lie. So to those who can hear what I'm saying, these people, they put masks over their face. When I saw that man that day, I had genuine, it went beyond concern. It was what we call in the novels, she felt a stab of fear. And I can tell you the reason why. If we live in a country where the commander-in-chief can sometimes be role played by any old whoever under a plastic face, then we as a nation are cooked. We already are cooked. But sometimes you see things, you experience things that really let you know how cooked you are. I saw that for myself. You may look and say, I see nothing there. That person is wearing a head over his head. And if he's wearing a head over his head, it can be anyone underneath. It can be anyone coming and sitting and giving a national address. This nation is on its way to a very great destruction. But I've always told you here prophetically by the Lord, it's not time for us to know about the destruction yet. It's so close, but not yet. God has already made that clear. And what happens when you're so close, but it's not there yet? You need to keep the party going. If you want to verify that I spoke of this before even my own eyes saw it, the prophecy is called Cameo. It's either from June or July, where I said that God showed me in the White House all the major players backstage. They were not at their jobs. They were not at their desks. They were not doing anything they were supposed to do. They were all backstage preparing a stage production. And I said that everybody was wearing a mask. I said that some people were only wearing a small eye mask, but some people were wearing the full mask. And some people had the whole, the kind of mask that you lift and put on your face, like the one that Jim Carrey had that was made out of wood in The Mask. Then he would put it on his face and it would just stick to him like that, and it would come alive and change his face into whatever. God showed me that prophecy. And I said that I saw the people, they were standing on a stage, and there were X's on the stage. And according to who was supposed to enter stage left and say, oh no, the economy is bad, then the X would move, and then the other person would come and stand on their X and say, we're not happy about this. I said exaggerated movements, exaggerated speech, over exaggerating sadness, over exaggerating anger. God showed me this thing, America. I brought it to you. I didn't get it from Life magazine. I didn't get it from anybody's so-called prophecy. I got it in my sleep. The prophecy is called cameo. The word cameo means, first, it's a brief appearance of a very famous person. That's what a cameo is. Seeing a Robert De Niro walk into a movie that has only Gen X or Gen Z in it, and then they all go, because it's a famous face. But a cameo is distinctive for being a brief appearance. The other definition of the word cameo means something that is embossed on a background. So I showed you the picture of a woman's head. The woman's head was cream, and then it was on a brown background. And I said that when you have a cameo like that, the thing that you look at is the thing in the front. You are not meant to focus on the thing at the back. The thing at the back, the cream lady's head, a woman's profile, that's what you're supposed to look at. That's what's put in the front. The brown background at the back is not supposed to catch your attention. It's only supposed to be a background. It's only there to make the thing in the front more striking. And God was saying that America is playing a duplicitous game, a two-faced game, where there are many activities and much speech and different things and press conferences going on in the front. And he said at the back, a whole different world is happening. A world that has nothing to do with normal America. The beast system rising. I saw the leader of this nation with a masking. The whole head he was wearing was not his head. It was a Joe Biden mask head. So you take that and do what you want with it. But I'm telling you that this person on their Instagram, you go and take a good look at her Instagram and tell me if you don't see at least 3 versions of her there. There's one version that is so hefty. That is the one everyone is dragging and trolling now. That is the most obvious man version. It's extremely light-skinned. It has heavily angled bones. And everyone, the internet will vindicate me in this. Every single person is consistently complaining and saying, why did our favorite tennis player go and bleach herself? Why did she bleach herself? She was so beautiful brown. Why did she have to do this? She's just looking... People, before I started the Beautiful Man series, people have been complaining about this since the Olympics, since before. They've been complaining about this skin color issue. That's not to my knowledge. I'm only seeing it now. So people who could not understand that they are looking at another version of something that they thought they knew, they keep complaining about it, complaining about it. Why is it light-skinned? It's not looking nice. It's dressing very poorly. It's not acting like the Serena that we knew. And then you go back to the Instagram, and then all of a sudden during the clapback, the old one comes back. Considerably smaller boned. Considerably smaller in size. Much browner, looking like the original. Rush and go to the Instagram quickly before all the posts comes down, and you will see. Just go back over a few levels. You will see the inconsistency of the face. What do I have to lose by telling you the truth? What do I have to lose? The only thing that I have to lose is the people who think, oh, the celebrity obsessed woman. God is going to touch what you love. God is going to tear it down. I have told you 1,000 times, when you hear God say, you will have no idols left, it means that he will not rest until he has taken away everything that makes you starstruck in the first place. Since you want to be starstruck and not God-struck, not Christ-struck, he will expose, he will hit with a hammer, he will strike and strike and strike until the thing be so marred before you that you would have to be mad to still love it. Since it stole your love from him, it stole your attention from him, he will break it until there's nothing left for you to love. He will expose it and reveal it until you would have to be gaslighting yourself to accept that it's still something high, it's still something worthy, it's still something loving. I don't have anything against anyone, but I have so much towards Christ. Everything towards Christ. So, We come back to where I was saying that the Miss Americas and everything were up and they were exposing themselves and they were beautiful. And then God just comes like a scratch on the record. Those are men. There are men among them. There's many men among them. So many men living successfully as women to the point that they won awards for it and nobody knew where they were. So the reason that you think I went off on a tangent, it was not. I was talking about how many men have won Supermodel of the Year, how many men have won Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. How many men have had Billboard hits? How many men have taken all the Grammys, all the Oscars, all the Dove Awards? You think the trans are not in the Christian community? They absolutely are there. And then a voice kept shouting as the camera would be swinging across these beauty stages and across the years. And the winner is so-and-so, Miss Nebraska, 1999. Please, these are just years. I'm not saying go and stalk Miss Nebraska and tell her that she's a man. Kindly, please, and no. I'm just giving an example of how the announcer would yell, the winner is Miss the United States of America is Miss Universe 2004. So that is what was happening. And then the confetti would let go from the top and they would start to play that She's Wonderful music. And then the camera, this being God, would start rushing all over the stage, landing on the men. You know how all the other people stand back and they clap when you've won? And instead of focusing on the winner, then the camera would start going, highlighting the different beautiful, stunning women that were actually men. So it kept happening either at the moment of calling the winner or during the swimsuit or the formal wear competition. The camera was just going everywhere. The image was changing, and then the camera would run only over the heads of the winners, you know, the last top 20, top 10, like that, and showing the winners from across the various years, the moment that these men would win. It would show the moment that people were celebrating them and they would come and bow. Have you ever noticed how tall these people are? Honestly, I've seen it whereby a man is the announcer, and yet when the Miss So-and-so comes to get crowned, she's towering above him. The way Barack Obama's wife towers over real women every time he's invited to something. His name is Michael Robinson. Michael LaVaughn Robinson, by the way. This world is not a real place. So I would see the winner stepping up to get crowned and to receive hugs and flowers. And there the Lord was just in the background, okay? So his presence was just sitting back in the background, watching me watch these men and women on stage in total disbelief. And the phrase that he kept putting in my heart as the scenes were going past over the years, those are men, Celestial. So many men on that stage that you would never believe it if you knew, or if they stepped forward to show who was a man. There are men going as far back as you would want to take it, doing the things that women do and getting away with it. So here, the way I always tell you, look at the way God speaks. He's watching me absorb the shock in my dream. He's not watching them. He knows what they are. He's now watching me and seeing how I'm taking it. And I was in total disbelief. I was shocked. My heart was so weighed down during this thing. And he simply is telling me gently, kindly, those are men. He says it's so many men up on that stage. And he says as far back as you would want to take it. Do you know why he put it like that? Because there's some people who don't want to take it back at all. There's some people who the minute you touch their Jamie Lee Curtis, they're ready to curse you out on this internet. The minute you touch their Ciara, their whoever, their Sandra Bullock, from all over the world. This is not an American reaction. From all over the world. The minute you touch a beautiful man, people's minds shut down so they can't take it far back. But God is saying as far back as the Windsors, and even further back. And you know that the Windsors run back hundreds of years. They descend as a legitimate kingly line. Hundreds of years. House of Windsor. So The last thing I saw, right? You wake up, you absorb, and then I just fell back to sleep. I fell back to sleep, and the last thing I saw when I fell asleep was the population doll. This is nothing like the dolls I've been speaking about. These ones are human talking. A population doll is just that faceless, you know, that faceless cut out with the arms and the legs, when they say 6 out of 10 people took Vicks and fell asleep and they lost their cold. And then they'll show you the 10 people, and then they'll show you the 6 that got well with Vicks, and then the other dolls are just the wrong color, right? So they'll show you the 6 that the Vicks did well for them, and then they'll show you the other 2 that had no response. I just call it the population doll. It's this faceless and flat image that they use when they're doing demographic studies, and they show you which areas are more heavily populated, and they say at the bottom, the key will say each doll equals 1,000 people. Each doll is 1,000 people. So then if you see 10 dolls, then you know, oh, that's 10,000 people in this area, in this town. It was that kind of thing. It can be any color, and they simply use it to show a given value of humanity. It always represents people. So I started to see lines of dolls. God simply started to show me lines of dolls, and then they would all be gray, and then you color them in. And when he colored them in, the red color represented women and the blue color represented men. So he show you a line, it's all gray, so you have no idea of knowing which is which. And then he colors it in, and that's the shock of seeing the colors. So for beauty shows, it was more men. It was more male dolls in some lines, right? It would show a beauty show, all gray, and then it would color them in, and it would always be more blue dolls than red dolls. So let's say 20, and then it would be maybe 11 or 12 male dolls, and then the remainder is female dolls. Or for some beauty shows, it was equal number men and women for female beauty shows. And then he showed me, for instance, sports. Then it's heavily male. For that one, if he shows you 12, it's 8 male dolls. When it turns, when the color comes in, then it's 8 male dolls and only 4 female dolls. Or in one line, I don't know what that line represented. It was 10 blue dolls and only 2 red dolls. I do not know what category that was. But that final category, it was 12 dolls, and then they colored in, and to my shock, it was only 2 red dolls at the very end and 10 blue dolls. That is the last thing that I saw. This prophecy has been eating me all day. Especially because when the Lord was giving it to me, he kept saying, go make the video now. Go make the video now. But I really needed to settle myself. I needed to have peace with all the different moving parts that you have heard in this. It's not just about men successfully hiding themselves in this population, but you have heard the part where God says it actually will touch on homes. And what he showed me is in the Old Testament from the book of Ezra, actually. In the book of Ezra, there was a situation where the exiles came back to Israel. The exiles, that means they'd been living where? They'd been living outside. Just a moment, please. They'd been living outside in the Babylonian captivity for 70 whole years. 70 years were determined at Babylon, and then they finally come back. And during that time, the laws of God have not changed. So Israel's told, don't marry outside of the designation of Israel. Don't marry. It's a commandment that you shall not give your sons. Don't give your sons to take wives from among the strangers' children, and don't give your daughters to have husbands. But now these men have been living in foreign places, and I guess sometimes when you're away from home, people start acting as if the laws of God don't apply. And it was not acceptable to God. And so now Ezra is among them as a leader, bringing the people to order according to God's order. So they have this one big sacrifice. They celebrate this one big sacrifice to God of bringing articles to the house of God and just all the righteous things. But then the leaders come to Ezra in Ezra 9, and they come to him willingly. Obviously, you know, when you come back to righteousness in God, one of the things that we're supposed to do is that God's goodness will draw us back and we repent. It's the goodness of God that brings men to repentance. And so as they start to get back in the flow of doing the righteous thing, I guess it's weighing heavy on their hearts that they have foreign wives, and they come to Ezra and they tell him. How would Ezra know? He can't know by looking that they're not Israelite women. He comes, he finds them in the midst of the congregation. There's so many of the wives. So how was he to know that they're not Israelite women? So they come to him and they confess and they tell him, you know that among us, we have actually taken to us the foreigner to wife, and they have borne us many children. And they even confess to him and they tell him, Ezra, in our midst, it is mostly our elders and our leaders who have done this thing. Now, Ezra's response goes to show you how deeply righteous of a man he is. This man tore his clothes. Tearing your clothes in Israel is a sign that you are voiding your leadership. You are voiding your leadership. You are voiding your position. For a man of position, for instance, as a prophet, or a man as the chief priest, Caiaphas did this. He tore his clothes when Jesus answered him, confirming that he was indeed who he said he was. Caiaphas tore his clothes, and Caiaphas had no idea that by tearing your clothes in front of God's actual high priest, he was forever voiding the need to have a human high priest, because as Hebrews tell us, Jesus took it from there. Jesus is our high priest who lives forever to make intercession for the saints. So it was a very prophetic thing that happened at that time. But in this case, when Ezra tears his clothes, Ezra is basically saying, what's even the use of me being a prophet here when we are filled with foreign wives? And this is exactly what God is saying. Church of Jesus Christ, what is even the point? What part are you playing in so-called keeping the earth righteous? How many man-to-man marriages have the pastors conducted? We will never know. So Ezra was so righteous that he tore his clothes. He wailed. The man plucked out the hairs of his beard and of his head to show you how distressed he was. Imagine, so this is a righteous response to finding out just that the wrong girls have been married. But in America, we're finding out that a whole man, the malest of them all, is among us. And then the women are like, don't talk about them. They're natural women. I've seen them, meaning I've seen the doctored everything that is in front of me, and I confirm that these are women. See how the righteous respond to hearing that heinousness of heinounesses is taking place in our midst. He tore his beard, he tore his hair, he tore his clothes. Because how can he be of the priestly class? How can he be a prophet in Israel when Israel is doing this kind of thing? And so this is where God brought me to show me that the kind of pain that it causes when people find out what is happening. If God is saying that the only way to actually know if the woman that a person has married is to do a chromosome test, then what do you think is going to happen to the trust in that home? And please do not twist the words of this blog and go around saying, you must give me a chromosome test because Celestial said you're a man. No. You see, when I prophesy what God says, God already knows this is going to happen. There's a ton of people who are in for some very nasty surprises, and they've never set eyes on the Master's Voice Prophecy blog. They've never heard a word I've said. They have no idea what I'm talking about and doing here. God is telling us of things that already will happen. No matter what, they will happen. Why will they happen? Because the Lord says that the lie must come out. So please listen to this one verse. I've explained to you the backdrop. But please listen to this one verse that is going to be the banner scripture for this entire prophecy so that you can have an understanding of the kind of pain and anguish that always accompanies a lie. The first of this series is called The Beautiful Men of America, The History of a Lie. Hear how tearing it is now when lies are exposed. Chapter 10 and verse 1. Now while Ezra was praying, and while he was confessing and weeping and bowing down before the house of God, a very large assembly of men, women, and children gathered to him from Israel, For the people wept very bitterly. And if you go and read the rest of chapter 10, you will see why the people wept very bitterly. When Ezra was finally finished crying, weeping, lamenting, please listen to some of the words from this man's mouth. At the evening sacrifice, I arose from my fasting, and having torn my garments and my robe, I fell on my knees and I spread out my hands. This is a gesture of a helplessness and supplication. I spread out my hands to the Lord my God, and I said, "Oh my God, I am too ashamed and humiliated to lift up my face to you, my God, for our iniquities have risen higher than our heads, and our guilt has grown up to the heavens. Since the days of our fathers to this day, we have been very guilty, and for our iniquities, we, our kings, and our priests have been delivered into the hands of the kings of the land, to the sword, and to captivity, and to plunder, and to humiliation, such as it is this day. And now for a little while grace has been shown from the Lord our God to leave us a remnant to escape, and to give us a peg in his holy place." That means to just give us a small perch. Just let us have a dot of being near you, God. "To give us a peg in his holy place, that our God may enlighten our eyes and give us a measure of revival from our bondage." And he then goes on to quote the entirety of the law, where it tells them that they will be bringing the place that God took these people is into an unclean land. As an American, you have to understand that at some point you have to stop grieving about finding out all the things that we are finding out. You're finding out after I have found out. At some point, you will need to shut off the grieving and realize where you are, where your children are. Pedophile junction. The home where there is no safety for the little one. Never take your eyes off your little one, even if he's 19 and telling you, "Mom, it's okay." Young men are going missing all the time now because you know what, young man, they need your parts. They need your parts. The sacrifice altar must be kept hot at all times. Don't let it be kept hot with you and your friends because you think you're males and no harm can happen to you. These vans that are roving around, the men in those vans are stronger than you, and they also have things to inject into you that will have you fainting on the ground in under 20 seconds. Don't take these risks. So he's telling God that we have been brought into an unclean land, but we had stipulations and we had clear instructions when we came into the unclean lands, but we have not kept the unclean lands. And so God is talking here in Ezra 10:1, and explaining how the people gathered to where Ezra was just wailing. He was wailing and he was fasting. And they came also weeping now because of the conviction of the fact that they had mingled and blended themselves with what the Bible calls the foreigner. And Ezra then gives a very harsh instruction. He gives a harsh instruction and he says within 3 days' time, every single man who has a foreign wife should appear at this appointed place. I think it was Jerusalem. Yes, he tells them, chapter 10 and verse 7, "And they issued a proclamation throughout Judah and Jerusalem to all the descendants of the captivity that they must gather at Jerusalem, and that whoever would not come within 3 days, according to the instructions of the leaders and the elders, then all his property would be seized, confiscated, and he himself will be separated from the assembly of those from the captivity." So the threat was, we will take every single thing you own and we will cut you off from among the people forever. That's how serious they were taking of purging the foreign wives from their midst. So they had to come, and the end result of this situation that I'm telling you is that the wives and all the children that they bore were put away. This is what God gave me to illuminate the taking of a man into your bed as a wife. There are many men who will watch this, and they know they have men in their beds. They're called gay people, and they knowingly have openly self-confessed other gay people in their beds. That's one class. God is not talking to these men at this time, even though that lifestyle should be exited with speed, repentance, and an immediate breakup. However, God is talking to the hidden transgenders and transsexuals. Same thing. In the midst, living in these families, God is saying that he knows your secret and that you have actually come to the time now where it's going to be exposed. It will be exposed whether you are willing or whether you are not willing. And if you are famous and in this life, it's going to be even worse for you, because God is going to do it on the big screen and all your fans will see and they will loathe you. If you've ever heard of fear and loathing, that's how it's going to be. They will loathe you. Because when people are exposed for being gullible, they never want to hate themselves for being a fool. They will hate the person who fooled them first. They will never take responsibility and say, maybe I wasn't looking with the right eye. Maybe I was very worshipful and irresponsible. And when people tried to tell me in the earlier parts, I fought them and I argued. They will never take responsibility. To cut a long story short, it's you they will hate. And God is telling you that the day is coming when you're going to be brought out into the hotness of the sun. The hottest sun in this nation is TMZ. But then right after it is the newspaper and the press. And therefore, God is showing that even at the lowest level, this thing is going to be uncovered. And he simply says to men that one of the ways that it can be uncovered, for the blood and the DNA never lie, is a chromosome test. The prophecy you are listening to is from today, August the 24th. It is called They Will Need a Chromosome Test. I'm Celestial, and this is the Master's Voice Prophecy blog. I bring to you the revelations, the dreams, the prophetic teachings, the admonitions, the warnings, and the rebukes of the Lord Jesus Christ, of the Lord Yah, of the Holy Spirit, as I have received and recorded them since the year 2012 until now. It is August 2024. God bless you, and until I see you again, goodbye.